This is Audible.
Hachette Audio presents Internment, written by Samira Ahmed, read by Sanila Nankani. For Thomas, Lena, and Noah, hearts of my heart, the reasons for everything. And for everyone fighting for liberty and justice for all, so that this nation, of the people, by the people, and for the people, shall not perish from this earth. Though you muffle my voice, I speak. Though you clip my wings and cage me, I fly. And though you batter my body, commanding me to kneel before you, I resist. Ali Amin. Chapter 1. I strain to listen for boots on the pavement, stomping, marching. But there's nothing. Only the familiar chirp of the crickets and the occasional fading rumble of a car in the distance, and a rustle so faint I can't tell if it's the wind or the anxious huff of my breath. But everywhere it's the same as it's always been. The perfectly manicured lawn of Center Square, the gazebo's twinkling fairy lights, the yellow beams from the porch lamps at every door. In the distance, I see a funnel of smoke rising into the air. Most of the town is at the book burning, so I should be safe. Or at least, safer. I don't measure time by the old calendar anymore. I don't look at the date. There is only then and now. There is only what we once were and what we have become. 2.5 years since the election. 2 years since the Nazis marched on D.C. 18 months since the Muslim ban. 1 year since our answers on the census landed us on the registry. 9 months since the first book burning. 6 months since the exclusion laws were enacted. 5 months since the Attorney General argued that Korematsu v. United States established precedent for the relocation of citizens during times of war. 3 months since they started firing Muslims from public sector jobs. 2 months since a virulent Islamophobe was sworn in as Secretary of War, a cabinet position that hasn't existed since World War II. 1 month since the President of the United States gave a televised speech to Congress declaring that Muslims are a threat to America. I thought our little liberal college town would fight it longer, hold out. Some did. But you'd be surprised how quickly armed military personnel and pepper spray shut down the well-meaning protests of liberals in small, leafy towns. They're still happening. The protests turned riots, even though the mainstream media won't cover them. The resistance is alive, some say, but not in my town, and not on the nightly news. Curfew starts in 30 minutes, and this is a stupid risk. My parents will absolutely freak out if they find that I'm not in my room reading, but I need to see David. I force myself to walk calmly, head forward, like I have nothing to hide, even though every muscle in my body shrieks at me to run, to turn back. Technically, I'm not doing anything wrong. Not yet. But if the police stop me, well, let's just say they have an uncanny ability to make technicalities disappear. Breathe. Slow down. If I rush from shadow to shadow, I will attract attention, especially from the new motion-sensitive security cameras mounted to the street lamps. Curfew hasn't started yet, and I'm allowed outside right now, but it's already dark. Even here, where almost everyone knows me and my parents, maybe because of that fact, my heart races each time I step out of the house. I cross at the light, waiting for the walk signal, even though there are no cars. I spy a flyer for the burning taped around the lamppost at the corner. Join your neighbors. The words are superimposed on a cascade of banned books. Dangerous books. A hard knot forms in my stomach, but I keep walking, eyes still on the poster, and bump headlong into a woman rushing in the opposite direction. She stumbles and drops her bag. Books and flyers fall to the ground. I bend down to help her pick up her things. Sorry, I wasn't looking where I was going. I try to be polite, deferential. Stay calm, I say to myself. It's not past curfew yet. Don't act guilty. You're not guilty of anything. But these days, actual guilt is an afterthought. The woman keeps her head turned away from me, refusing to meet my gaze, shoveling the books and papers back into her bag. I reach for 2 books and glance at the titles before she grabs them from my fingers. Palace Walk by Najib Mahfouz. Nameless Saints by Ali Amin. My father. For a split second, she looks me in the eye. I suck in my breath. Mrs. Brown, I'm sorry. My voice fades away. Mrs. Brown owns the Sweet Spot on Jefferson Street. She made my favorite birthday cake ever. A green frosted Tinkerbell confection for my 5th birthday. She narrows her eyes at me, opens her mouth to speak, and then clamps it shut. She looks down and pushes past me. She won't even say my name. Her flyer for the book burning somersaults away in the breeze. I shrink into myself. I'm afraid all the time now. Afraid of being reported by strangers or people I know, of being stopped by police and asked questions for which there are no answers. I pick up the pace to cross the town square, staring straight ahead, wiping the fear off my face, fighting the tears that edge into the corners of my eyes. I can't suffer looking at the university's gleaming glass administration building, all clean lines and razor-sharp edges that cut to the bone. David's mother teaches chemistry at the university. My dad teaches poetry and writing. Did teach, I should say, until he was fired, mysteriously deemed unqualified for the tenured professorship he'd had for over a decade. That's another before. 2 months since my dad lost his job. My mind lingers on Mrs. Brown. She knows me. She's seen me. And in minutes I'll be in violation of curfew. I'm obviously not going to the burning. I should be home. The hard knot in my stomach grows. I remember a lesson from my psychology class about an experiment in which volunteers were asked to torture people who were in another room by pressing a button that supposedly delivered an electric shock. It didn't really, but the volunteers didn't know that. All they heard were screams. Some resisted at first, but most of them pressed the button eventually, even when the screams got louder. David is waiting for me at the pool house in his neighbor's yard. They're on vacation in Hawaii. Vacation. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be able to go on vacation right now and not worry about being stopped by the TSA for a secondary search that could lead to being handcuffed to a wall for hours. Or worse. David is taking a risk too, though we both know it's not the same for him. He may be brown, almost browner than me, and Jewish, but right now it's my religion in the crosshairs. We were suspended for 2 days from school for kissing in the hall, in the open, where everyone could see. We weren't breaking any laws. Not technically. But I guess the principal didn't want to look like he was encouraging relationships between us and them. Apparently, PDA's against school rules. But I've never heard of anyone pulling suspension for it. Even worse, although David got booted too, only my parents and I were called in for a lecture about how I should know my place at school, keep my head down, and be grateful for the privilege of attending classes there. I was gobsmacked. My dad nodded, took it in stride. My mom did too, even though she wore a scowl the entire time we were in the office. Then, when I started to open my mouth to say something, my mom shook her head at me. Like I'm supposed to be thankful to go to the public school where I've always gone, in the town where I've always lived. Why were they so quiet? Especially Mom. She's almost never quiet. I left school that afternoon, and my parents were too scared to let me go back. The pool house door is ajar. I catch my breath for a second before stepping inside. "Layla," David whispers, touching my cheek with his fingers. David has his dad's gray-blue eyes and his mom's deep golden brown skin, and a heart bursting with kindness. A single candle glows at the center of the coffee table. He's drawn the curtains in the small studio space. A white sofa piled high with navy blue pillows, some with applique anchors on them. A couple of overstuffed armchairs. Lots of faded pink and ivory seashells in mason jars. And on the wall, a framed poster declaring, "Life's a beach," against white sand and cerulean sky and sea. We're alone. I imagine that this is what it must have been like decades ago, before the cold lights of computer screens and tablets and phones permanently eliminated the peace of darkness from our lives. Without saying a word, I walk into David's arms and kiss him. I pretend the world beyond the curtains doesn't exist. Being in his arms is the only thing that feels real right now. It's the only place where I can pretend, for a moment, that we're still living in the before, in the way things used to be. I pretend that David and I are making plans for summer, that we'll play tennis some mornings, that we'll go to movies. I pretend that I'll be graduating in a few months and going to college, like my friends. I pretend that David and I will exchange school hoodies. I pretend that high school relationships last into college. Most of all, I pretend that this magic hour is the beginning of something, not the end. We sink to the sofa. While we kiss, he runs his fingertips along my collarbone, a whisper-light touch that makes me shiver. I nuzzle my face into his neck. David always smells like a nose-tickling combination of the floral laundry detergent his mom buys and the minty soap he uses. I know his mom still does his laundry. She babies him. I tease him about it. About how in college all his white clothes will come out pink because he won't remember to separate his wash. I sigh. I brush my cheek against his, feeling the odd patch or two of uneven boy stubble. We hold each other, and hold each other. It would be a perfect moment to freeze in time and make into a little diorama that I could inhabit for an eternity. But I can't. I rest my chin on David's chest. I wish I could stay here forever. Is there a magic portal that will transport us to some other dimension? A Time Lord, maybe? Should have stolen the TARDIS when I had the chance. My dad badgered us into watching Doctor Who, starting with the old school episodes, and we got hooked. Since then, we've had on and off binge-watching sprees. Despite the sometimes ridiculous production values, the monsters can be terrifying. It's one of our things. I give David a small smile. He could always make me laugh, but humor stabs now. I miss dumb banter. I miss laughter that doesn't make me feel guilty. I miss laughter that is simple joy. Everything about being with David feels natural, like the crooked, happy smile he's wearing right now, like the comfortable moments we can pass in silence. like our ability to just be with each other. We've known each other since grade school, but it was last year at the homecoming bonfire that we had our first kiss. David sat next to me and took my hand, intertwining his fingers with mine. It felt like waking up to a perfect sunrise. Around us, everyone was drinking and rowdily mock-singing the school fight song and making out. But all we did was sit there, holding hands. And as the crowd started to thin in the shadows of the dying embers, I turned to look at David. And when I wiped a bit of white ash from his forehead, he brought my hand to his lips and kissed my fingertips. I reached up and kissed him, my heart pulsing in every cell of my body. Looking back now, I think I gravitated toward David because, like me, he was different. His dad's family is Ashkenazi, and his mom's side are Jewish refugees from Yemen. Maybe politics and borders were supposed to keep us apart, but David and I built a safe space, a nest where our differences brought us together. I look into David's eyes and squeeze his hand. We both know that I have to go, that this evening can't last. Without a word, we stand up from the couch. I zip my hoodie. David wraps his arms around my waist and peppers my face with gentle kisses. My heart thrums in my ears. I could live in this moment forever. Let time fade away until we wake on the other side of this madness. I wish we had more time, David says. I know he means he wants us to have more time together tonight. I can't help but take his words as meaning something more. Time has a weight to it now, a mood, and it's usually an ominous one. The world is too much with us, late and soon, I say, and kiss David on the cheek. He knits his eyebrows together, a little confused. It's from a 1,000,000-year-old poem by Wordsworth that my dad made me read about how consumerism is killing us and we don't have time for anything really important. But I sometimes read it as the world is out of whack. Our phones beep at the same time. I check my screen, and a wireless emergency alert flashes. One people, one nation. Tune in at 9 p.m. for the President's National Security Address, to be broadcast on all channels. It's a reminder about the weekly speech tonight. 2 weeks ago, the President's speeches became required viewing. All other programming on television and radio stops. The internet doesn't work. The text of the speech scrolls across phones. Technically, I suppose you could turn your television off, but my parents keep it on, with the volume low. My parents are too afraid now of making mistakes. Can you believe this crap? The alerts are supposed to be for, missing kids, not speeches from bigots. David shakes his head and squeezes my hand tighter. I really have to get back, I say. The bonfire will be over soon. People will be walking home. I think of bumping into Mrs. Brown, her squinting eyes. My mom will die if they catch me. David takes a step back. His jaw clenches before he speaks. Bonfire? Let's not use euphemisms. They're burning books in the school parking lot. They're fucking burning books. My mom's a damn professor, and she's going along with this. And my dad, both of them, really. I know, I whisper. It's my dad's books. His poems. My voice cracks, and tears fall down my cheeks. I brush them away with the back of my hand. They're burning his poems. He pretends it's not happening. But those words are him. He's trying to hide it. But I know it's killing him. Both of my parents. All of us. Is this how the end begins? It's not the end of anything, he says. Especially not of you and me. Sure. Right. As if your parents haven't forbidden you from seeing me. It's my dad. He's being a total asshole. And my mom, she's going along with him. I think she's too terrified to speak up. Part of me thinks I should say something, tell David that his parents aren't so terrible. But I can't. I won't. They stay quiet, using their silence and privilege as a shield to protect themselves. We'll fight this. People will fight this. Are fighting, David says, trying to reassure me. I know he thinks he needs to be strong, to make it seem like he believes his own words. But I don't think he buys it. I can tell from the way his smile curves down at the edges. I can tell because his left hand is balled into a fist, even as his right arm envelops me. I nod and give him a grin that doesn't reach my eyes. We accept the lies we tell each other and ourselves, I suppose. It's one of the ways we are surviving the day-to-day without going mad. At least this isn't pretend. I nestle into David's chest, and he kisses the top of my head. When we first got together, I thought it might be weird to date a friend, someone who'd known me so long. The first time we walked through the school doors and down the hall holding hands, my palm was so sweaty it kept slipping away from David's. He held on tighter, knitting his fingers through mine, kissing my forehead when he dropped me off at my locker. Easy, natural, kind. Like we were something he always knew we would be. There's rustling outside the window. Our heads snap up. A bright LED beam dips back and forth across the lawn. David raises a finger to his lips. I don't move. I can't move. My heart pounds in my chest. After an eternity, the light goes out. You've got to get home, David whispers to me. I'll walk you. No, it's too dangerous. It's more dangerous for you. I look at my watch. 17 minutes past curfew. What was I thinking? We clasp hands and tiptoe to the door, slowly opening it. David sticks his head out first, then whispers back. It's okay. No one's out here. I take a deep breath and step out. That was close. Too close. This was foolish. Perfect, but stupid. We race across the lawn, an acrid burning smell heavy in the night air. Over the tops of the roofs, a column of smoke still rises, higher now than before. Blackish, gray wisps of words and ideas and spirits. A burnt kurbani ascending to heaven for acceptance. I can't tell if the tears in my eyes are on account of smoke or grief. Stop! A voice like sandpaper yells from behind us, flooding the darkness with a cruel light. We keep running, faster now. Go! David shouts to me as he slows to swivel around, pulling his hand away from mine. I stop, almost stumbling over myself. I can't leave you! David pushes me into the darkness. It's not me they want. Run! Chapter 2. Tears blind me while I race home. As I approach my yard, it dawns on me that I might be able to outrun the person who was chasing us, but no matter how fast I sprint, I can't escape this new reality of curfews and clandestine meetings and cinders rising in the air. I push through the front door and slip inside, quickly shutting it behind me. I'm panting, my heart racing, wiping the tears from my face with my sleeve, terrified out of my mind that David might have been caught by whoever was waving around that flashlight in the darkness. I'm smacked with the smell of frying onions and adrak lesan. The smell of home, juxtaposed with the sweaty, breathless odor of desperation and the taste of rust in my mouth. My parents rush out of the kitchen. My mom's mouth falls open. The blood drains from her face, and she rubs her eyes with her hands, clearly wanting to erase this moment. She steadies herself against the whorled bird's-eye maple console table in our foyer, my parents' first flea market find as a couple, years before they had me. My dad is every inch the professor, thin but not muscular, with wavy hair that always looks a bit messy, grays sprouting up here and there among the dark chestnut brown, and black plastic-framed glasses that he prefers to contacts. He takes his glasses off and rubs the little reddish indentations along the sides of his nose. He always does this when he's contemplating something deep or worrying.
"Layla," he says, "explain yourself. Were you outside? Now? At night?"
His voice is firm, but he doesn't yell. My dad is not a yeller. He barely raises his voice at me, even when I deserve it. This is clearly one of those moments. My mom's voice, however, is less restrained than my dad's, as always. She doesn't wait for me to answer him. "You were supposed to be in your room. It's after curfew. What were you thinking? I can't believe you would do something this foolish. Do you know what could have happened?" She shakes her head, clenching her jaw, fury and fear flashing in her eyes. They're lighter brown than mine, with specks of hazel and green. What she claims is the assertion of her distant Pashtun blood. My mom's voice trails off, because we all know what could have happened. There are whispers of Muslims who have disappeared. Muslims like us who answered the census truthfully when asked about our religion. Muslims who refuse to hide. I stare at my worn gray Converse All-Stars and try to scrape off the dirt from one scuffed toe with the other.
"Layla, answer your mother,"
my dad says. Mother. He might not yell, but he uses formal titles when he's really mad. I answer, my voice barely a whisper. "I was with David." "David? You broke curfew to see David? Are you crazy?" My mom turns her back to me, pauses, then walks into the large main room of our house, a living room that flows into a sunroom in the back. She falls into a cream love seat tufted with multicolored cloth buttons and stares into the fireplace. She's like me. I know that her synapses must be on rapid fire, but my mom's practiced meditation for years. She says it's the only way she's found to calm her mind. Wordlessly, she reaches up to the nape of her neck and undoes the loose bun she wears when cooking. Her dark hair, accented with the occasional gray strand, falls around her face, shielding it from me. I see her fingering her rosewood Thusby bracelet. I don't need to see her mouth to know she's uttering a prayer.
"Beta,"
my dad says, using the Urdu word for child. If mother and father are signals of his anger, Beta is the clearest sign of his love.
"I know this is hard for you, but understand that David won't face the consequences you will. You can't take these risks. Your mom and we're afraid for you."
I know. I'm afraid too. But David is the only bit of normal I have left. Please don't make me give that up. My dad winces a little, like my words have struck him. He glances down at the tan leather Indian kusa slippers he wears inside the house, like he's measuring them up, as if he's wearing them for the first and not the millionth time. Even though he's not going to work anymore, he's still in his teaching uniform. Navy V-neck sweater and jeans.
Beta, you can't leave again so close to curfew. It's too dangerous. We know it feels like prison, but it's for your safety. It's not up for discussion.
Dad prides himself on being even-keeled, even when he's angry. Now, as he stares at me, it's like looking into my own wide, dark brown eyes. I nod like I agree, which I don't. But I need this conversation to end because I'm desperate to text David to find out if he's okay. I'm not sure Dad believes me, but he accepts my nod as acquiescence. More pretending. More lies we tell ourselves because reality is too much to hold all at once. He gives me a mirthless smile and walks toward my mom. I make my way to the foot of the stairs and take a seat. I dig my phone out of my pocket. I need to tell David that I'm home. I'm safe. He's probably out of his mind worried too, like I am about him. One thing that isn't pretend? Surveillance. I may do stupid things. I may risk getting busted after curfew to see my boyfriend. But I'm not dumb enough to send a regular text. We use the Signal app, so our texts are encrypted. Me. I'm home. Are you okay? David.
Yeah. It was Jim.
Me. From down the street? What the hell? David.
He's Patriots Alliance.
Me. WTF is that? David.
I guess some new initiative to keep us safe.
Me. Right. Safe from people like me. Wait. They're the ones using Patriot app to snitch on their neighbors, right? Assholes. David.
He didn't see that it was you. I told him it was Ashley. That we ran because the flashlight freaked us out. We thought he was a serial killer or something. I think he believed me. He gave me this bro pat on the back. It was gross.
Me. Will she back you up? David.
She better. She's my lab partner now, so I'll sabotage every damn experiment if she doesn't.
A fireball grows inside my chest. Of course he was going to get a new lab partner when I left school. Of course his life was going to continue. I'm so filled with jealousy that Ashley, mild-mannered, sweet since forever Ashley, gets to sit next to David for an entire hour at school without having to risk anything. I want to throw my phone to the ground, stomp on it, and crush it into tiny bits of glass and metal. But what's the use in complaining about how unfair life is? It's always been unfair to someone, somewhere. Now, I guess it's my turn. David.
Layla?
Me. Here. David.
I love you.
Me. I know. Heart emoji. David.
I'll come by after school tomorrow if I can. Okay? Sweet dreams.
3 faces blowing a kiss. Me. Heart eyes emoji. 2 heart emojis. What I want to text. Broken heart emoji. When I look up from my phone, I see that my parents have slipped into the kitchen. I can hear them pulling dishes out of the cupboard and setting the table. I run upstairs to put my phone away. No phones at the dinner table in the Amin household. I hurry back down and find my parents already seated in the dining room. I take my usual chair, the gray tweed perfectly molded to the shape of my body. No one says a word. My dad catches my eye for a moment, but my mom doesn't look up.
She has the shorter fuse, and the flames of her anger take longer to put out than my dad's.
They have their differences, but they almost always present a united front.
I learned that when I was a kid and would try to play one off the other to get my way. Never worked. "Spinach?" my mom asks me. I can still hear a little edge in her voice, but I can also tell she's trying to soften it. "No thanks," I say. She offers some to my dad. "As long as it's not too garlicky," he replies. "After 20 years of marriage, I think I know how you like your spinach." My mom smiles at him and hands him a steaming bowl of palak ghosh. I look at them across the table from me. I grab the edges of my hoodie and twist the fabric in my hands. Minutes ago, I raced in the front door, scared I was being chased by some government agent who turned out to be the middle-aged dentist who lives down the street from David. And my parents greeted me with looks of horror on their faces. And now they're married flirting about spinach. "I don't understand how you guys are acting all normal," I say. "A little bit ago you were freaking out at me for being late for curfew, and now we're talking about garlic? They're burning books. Dad's books." "What do you expect us to do, Layla?" my father asks in a soft voice. "How do you propose I stop a mob?" My dad has this calm down, Layla voice that he turns on when he wants to reassure me, make me feel safe. But hearing it in my ears right now, it feels weak. "I know you've both been too afraid to say anything, to do anything, but your silence isn't shielding us from hatred." My mom walks over to me and puts her arm around my shoulders. Part of me feels like leaning into her embrace, but there's a part of me that's angry too, so I stiffen at her touch. She pulls away and takes a deep breath. "Of course we want to say something, do something. But if we speak out, we'll be jailed. Then who will take care of you?" For a moment, I feel ashamed for guilt-tripping them. But I push that feeling away because the more I think, the more anger rushes through my veins. We can't ignore what the government is doing, what they're making everyone do. Dad got fired. We have curfews. I shake my head. You're too busy talking about spinach and garlic to say something, do something, anything. "Beta," my dad says. "We're not ignoring the reality of our lives. We're not hiding. We didn't deny who we are when we had the chance, did we? If I recall, when I wavered, when I questioned if maybe we should lie, you and your mother held steadfast. And you were right. We answered the census truthfully. We are Muslims. We are Americans. And we will continue to live our lives knowing that those two identities aren't mutually exclusive." Well, maybe we should have lied on that stupid census. Maybe it's dumb to hold on to principles when your beliefs can get you in trouble. I tell them. Other people lied. Sarah and Aiden, they're in London now, avoiding this whole mess because they checked no religion instead of Muslim. Easy. My parents look at each other. My mom puts her hand on mine. "I know we argued about it before, but your father and I believe this now more than ever. We will not deny who we are. We won't lie about being Muslim. Muslims have been in America since the first slaves were brought here. Can you even imagine what they went through to hold on to Islam? What they endured?" Tears come to my mom's eyes. I turn to my dad. "Remember what you said before? About taqiyya? What about living to worship another day? Maybe you were right."
My dad sighs and shakes his head.
Beta, I spoke out of fear, out of an instinct to protect you and your mom. And I do want to protect you. But I'm ashamed that I allowed myself to think, even for a minute, that hiding who we are would have been the right answer. Takia, concealing our religion, is forgivable, but only under extreme duress, only to save our lives. And the census was hardly a life-threatening situation. Look at Hazrat Sumaya. If she didn't conceal her faith, it hardly seems acceptable for us to do so.
She was tortured and impaled. That's kind of a high bar for duress, don't you think? I pause, waiting for my parents to disagree with me, but they only exchange sad glances. I sigh and continue. I understand what you're saying. We can't erase ourselves. But look at what happened to Nabra and those Muslim students at Chapel Hill, and that 70-year-old New Yorker who was almost beaten to death after 2 guys asked if he was Muslim. And those mosques that were burned down in Texas and Seattle? Remember those Punish a Muslim Day flyers that mysteriously started showing up around Chicago and Detroit? Don't you think we should have protected ourselves then? Now look at us. I feel like we can't even breathe. I can see my words like knives wounding my parents. My dad's face falls. My mom walks back to her chair, her hands clenched in fists at her sides.
Layla, we made a choice, and it was the right one. What do you think you're going to accomplish by rehashing it now? The past is the past. Beta, we will do everything in our power to protect you.
My dad says, gently taking my mom's hand in his. She unclenches her fist to accept his gesture.
But we can't live a lie. It's not only that every person in this town and campus knows who we are. We host the interfaith iftar every year, after all.
Hosted, I say, cutting my dad off. As in past tense. That all ended after the election, didn't it? He continues, not missing a beat.
We have a moral and ethical obligation to tell the truth.
So much of my dad's poetry is about finding truth in small things. Of course he believes this. And my mom, her whole chiropractic practice is based on a holistic health approach to life. Sure, my dad calls her a spitfire, and she is tough. But her love is fierce too. And lies and deception don't enter her worldview. They both, in their own ways, so desperately want to see the good in people and the world. During the election, with paranoia and Islamophobia and isolationism as the prevailing themes, my parents held on to this hope. During the primary debates, when the now president said on national television that there was justification and precedent for a Muslim registry, my parents, along with so many others, dismissed it as fear-mongering, red meat to rile up the base. They clung to their belief in the American ideals of equality and freedom of religion, even when they heard our leaders say that men gathering around Confederate statues with hands raised in Nazi salute were very fine people. When politicians seized on an attack at a French nightclub to warn about creeping Sharia and sleeper cells on U.S. soil, and polls began to favor the Muslim ban and the registry, so many of us said, it can't happen here. The thing is, it's not like half this country suddenly became Islamophobes because of any single event. But the lies, the rhetoric calling refugees rapists and criminals, the fake news, the false statistics, all gave those well-meaning people who say they're not bigots cover to vote for a man who openly tweeted his hatred of us on a nearly daily basis. Through the political dog whistles and hijabis having their headscarves ripped off, and mosques vandalized with swastikas, and the Muslims who went missing. Through all of it, my parents prayed and believed that things would get better. They seemed to have this eternal flame of hope. But that's not me. I stand up and take my plate to the kitchen. I'm not hungry anymore. I leave my parents to their hopes and prayers. Chapter 3. The president's grating tone wafts up to my room. It's not loud enough for me to hear, but every national security address hits the same notes. America first. Lots of euphemisms and misplaced superlatives, and fear-mongering, and the need to close borders, and chain migration, and illegals, and how he will make it all great again. My parents keep the television on in the living room, even though they're in the basement, watching Pretty in Pink on an ancient portable DVD player. It's one of my mom's nostalgic high school faves. I've seen it dozens of times. I honestly can't believe the disc hasn't cracked in half yet. If I were a little bummed out, I'd probably welcome the distraction that is Ducky's charm and the ridiculousness of Steph as a high school senior in an Oxford unbuttoned to his midriff. But I'm not merely bummed out. I'm sick to my stomach. I feel like my skin doesn't fit right. Saccharin's sentimentality isn't going to stop me from feeling helpless and terrified. I lie across my bed, mindlessly flipping through pages of a poetry anthology my dad assigned me. My nanny made my bedspread as a gift for my mom when I was born. I guess it was really a gift for me, though. She quilted it together from her old cotton saris, and even some that had been worn by my great-grandmother. Much of the multicolored fabric is faded now, the color worn away by time and sunlight. But it's the softest, most comfortable thing in the world. She passed away 2 years ago, but when I'm wrapped in this quilt, it's like her arms are reaching out to hug me when she knows I need it most. I'm reading Macbeth for AP English, a class I am no longer taking. My father is homeschooling me, and he insists we follow the curriculum. He also likes to add his own flourishes, hence all the poetry. Right now it's Wordsworth and Emily Dickinson and Fez Ahmed Fez. My parents pulled me from school because they were too scared of what might happen to me, terrified that my suspension could lead to much worse. I put up a giant fight, but a part of me was scared too. Homeschooling doesn't mean slacking off, though. Not to my parents. I still have the syllabi from all my classes, and David's been bringing me assignments. And since my dad lost his job, he's been taking his commitment to my learning seriously. I think it gives him something to do besides worrying about finding employment. He can't. At least not as a professor at any school that receives public funding. My parents haven't said anything to me about money, but I know they're worried. My mom is still treating patients in her chiropractic office. She's known some for years. But in the past couple of weeks, I've noticed her coming home early. Last Friday, she didn't go into work at all. I grab the poetry anthology and flip to an Emily Dickinson poem and read the title out loud. Hope is the thing with feathers. The wind kicks up and whirls, and the leaves of the old oak outside my window brush up against the pane, stealing my attention. I put the book down. An 80s teen movie might not be what I need right now, but I'm also too agitated to read a poem about hope being a bird. I can't concentrate. All my feelings are churned up, and I'm not in the mood to be inspired. A car pulls up outside the house. A door slams, then another. I roll off my bed onto the worn blue Duri rug that feels almost slick under my feet and step to the window to see who could be coming to our house this late. Below my window, 2 men in dark suits are walking toward our front door. My throat gets thick and my pulse quickens. Are they here for me? This can't be for me. Dudes in suits seem excessive for a girl breaking curfew. If anyone were to come to arrest me, wouldn't it be the police? But nothing is what it should be anymore. A dark van with a black and white logo emblazoned on the door parks behind my mom's sedan. I squint to make out the van's logo, lit only by street lamps. Exclusion Authority. A door of the van slides open, and 4 white men in sandstone-colored uniforms step out and flank the sidewalk leading to our house. Behind their van, the police chief pulls up in his squad car and steps out. Run, I say to myself. But I can't move. I try to scream to warn my parents, but no sound comes out of my mouth. Run! You have to move, to run. The doorbell rings, immediately followed by a loud pounding at the door. I hear my parents. They're already in the foyer. Run! Hide! Scream! There is no running, or hiding, or screaming. I'm frozen. One of the army guys, are they the army? Turns and sees me at the window. I drop to the floor. My breathing is loud. Short, quick breaths. I crawl across the floor of my bedroom, the wood boards under my rug creaking ever so slightly. I open my door a crack. Then more. Not that I need to. Suit number 1's voice bellows through the house.
Identify yourselves,
the voice says.
Are you Ali and Sophia Amin?
What the fuck? Mrs. Brown. It had to have been her who reported me. Or maybe Jim from Patriots Alliance didn't buy David's lie about Ashley. God, I did this. What have I done? I stand up and my body moves forward in a jerk. Then another, and then I'm flying down the stairs. Both men are in our foyer, facing my parents. These men, the suits, they're both white and broad-shouldered and expressionless. One of them has his hand near his hip. I narrow my eyes. It's a gun. His hand hovers near a gun. Stop! I yell. It's my fault. My parents had nothing to do with it. My mom turns toward the staircase, eyes wide. Suit number 2 draws a gun, and suddenly time slows down, like it's viscous, and my entire body is drenched in sweat. I can't feel my limbs, and the edges of my vision begin to blur. The only thing in focus is the gun, pointed at me. My mom screams, and my dad yells my name, but the sound is muffled, like they are far away. So far away. And I can't get to them. My dad moves forward to try to reach me, but suit number 1 grabs him and throws him to the ground, twisting his arm behind his back. My dad's glasses fall off and slide across the floor. There is more screaming. Ear-splitting, unnatural animal sounds. And I realize they're coming from me. Then there's only silence, and the weight of the air in the room pressing on our bodies, and my short, shallow breaths, forcing my chest to rise and fall too fast, making me lightheaded. Suit number 1 nods at suit number 2, who points his gun away from me and reholsters it under his suit coat. Suit number 1 releases my father's arm and pulls him up. I've never seen this look on my father's face before. It's terror or fear or confusion. No, none of those are the right words. We're all small, scared, helpless animals, our legs caught in the teeth of a steel trap. I understand. This has nothing to do with me. How stupid am I? This isn't about breaking curfew. It's about something far, far worse. Suit number 1, obviously the one in charge, pushes my dad toward my mom, whose face is wet with tears. She reaches out for my dad, her arms, her entire body shaking. Suit number 1 speaks, his voice a taut wire.
Under order of the Exclusion Authority, and by the powers vested in the Secretary of War under Presidential Order 1455, we are here to serve notice and carry out your relocation.
Relocation? What does that mean? I turn from the suits to my parents. My mom is sobbing into her hands, and my dad looks like the house is burning down around him. Relocation? I repeat. For us? To where? Why? Suit number 1 turns toward the stairs, narrowing his eyes at me.
Near Manzanar, and you would do best to keep quiet.
I clamp my mouth shut and bite my lip. The looks on my parents' faces. I clutch my stomach. I'm afraid I might throw up. Suit number 1 addresses my dad.
You are the author of this book, Nameless Saints, correct?
He says in a gravelly voice, gesturing to the book in his hand. Suit number 2 has barely uttered a word since the pair marched into our house.
Yes.
My dad answers slowly, uncertainly. His poems. They're coming after us because of poetry? I rack my brain to try to think what could be in these poems that would get us in trouble. His last book was published a couple of months before the election. But my dad, his poems, they're not fire and brimstone political. His poems are about people and moments and polishing tiny nuggets of truth.
And this poem? Revolution?
Suit number 1 asks, showing my dad a page in the book.
Yes.
My dad says, his voice low. It's probably my dad's best-known poem. When it was published in the New Yorker, my mom and I had Mrs. Brown make him one of those picture cakes with the cover of the issue his poem was printed in. Mrs. Brown, the woman who was off to burn my dad's books. Dad once came to school to do a writer's workshop with us in English class. I memorized his poem so I could recite it that day. Revolution by Ali Amin. Speak to me with your tongue while it is still free, while your body is still yours. Let your words travel through the air, uncontrolled, spontaneous, necessary, tumbling through clouds of dust that dim the sun, until they reach my ear, and so many ears, spilled onto the table, waiting. Speak the truth while it is still alive, while lips, cracked and bleeding, can still move. Time is beholden to neither lover nor tyrant. Say what you must. I will listen. Chapter 4. 10 minutes. That's how long we've been given to pack up our lives, to leave our home, to prepare for relocation. How do we even begin? That's not even enough time to say goodbye. Suit number 1's voice blasts at us as we begin to walk upstairs to collect our things.
Only the necessities. 1 bag per person.
He turns away, stops, and yells back.
Guards are posted in the front and back.
My parents and I continue up the stairs quietly. There are no more words. I feel like a fish that's been caught on a line and slapped onto a stone. My tail flaps, my body lurches. I'm about to be gutted, and all I can do is watch the knife coming for me. My dad silently ushers all of us into my room. My eyes scan this space that suddenly feels like it's not my own, not the place I've spent every night for over a decade. The book left open on my bed, the disheveled kanta quilt, the long black cotton scarf with red roses embroidered on it, my phone plugged into the nightstand. My phone. David. I need to tell him. I stutter step toward my phone. Boots stomp up the stairs. No, my mom whispers, snatching the phone from my hands. There's no time to protest, let alone tap out a text. I can only watch, wide-eyed, as my phone falls to the ground, hitting the carpet with a soft thud and a bounce that lands it on the bare wood floor under my bed. I drop to my knees to reach for it amid the dust and detritus.
I'll take your phones now.
I look up. It's the Boots. A man in a khaki army uniform steps into my room, hand extended. His jaw juts out, showcasing a prominent underbite. My dad reaches into his pocket and turns over his phone. He doesn't make eye contact with the guard, or with me or my mom. My phone. Mom stumbles over her words, then clears her throat. It's on the small table in the foyer. She takes my dad's hand, and they step a little closer to me. My mom reaches for me. I take her hand and let her pull me to standing. She nods at me. I look down at my phone, the bejeweled rubber case, the scratches on the glass surface, the screensaver of David and me, a selfie of us on a hike not far from here. His arm is around my shoulders. I'm flashing a peace sign, and we both have these goofy grins on our faces. There's a tightness in my chest. There's a deep coldness in my bones, and my blood is like ice. My mom turns to me and carefully unwraps each of the fingers that clutch my phone. My knuckles are white. Without another word, she gives my phone to the guard.
10 minutes.
The guard barks at us, and then turns and walks out my door. My dad pauses, then quietly shuts the door. We're alone, the three of us, in my room. I burst into tears. My parents surround me, wrapping their arms around each other and me. One of them kisses the top of my head. I'm not sure who. The other kisses my forehead. I don't know anything anymore. I don't even know if this is real. I can't feel my body. It's like I'm watching all of this from outside myself, and it seems like it should be science fiction.
We only have a few minutes,
my dad says, his voice cracking as he releases us from his embrace.
Take what you think you'll need, Beta,
my mom says, stepping back. A vice grips my heart. What I need? I need all the things I can't have. My dad takes my mother's free hand. They look at me, ashen-faced, red-eyed. They are about to walk out, but my mom returns to me, grabs my hand, and motions for my dad to take the other. In this small circle of our family, my mom turns first to me, then my dad, silently, her eyes glistening with tears. She starts to whisper a prayer. My Arabic isn't so good, besides memorizing duas for daily prayers. But this one I know, because it was always on Nani's lips. She even carried a copy of this verse in her purse on a little laminated card. The verse of the throne. The protection prayer. My Nani used to tell me that this was one of the most powerful verses of the Quran. That whoever recited this verse would be under God's protection. My dad once told me about the poetic symmetry of the verse. You should imagine yourself walking through the verse, stopping at the chiasmus, the middle line. He knows that which is in front of them and that which is behind them. When you read the 4 lines before and the 4 lines after, you'll see how, thematically, they are concentric circles that loop around that middle line. I may not be the most stalwart of Muslims, and my practice may waver, but this dua, maybe because of how I remember Nani reciting it as she would blow the prayer over me, this one always gives me a sense of calm, but something more, too. Like my Nani's voice endowed each of the words with the strength of her belief, like the words were tangible. I reach out for that peace right now, that strength, but it feels like grasping at air.
We have to hurry,
my dad says when my mom finishes the short verse. Can you do this? My mom asks. Do you need me to help you? No, I want to say. I can't do this. I won't. My heart is breaking, but underneath there's this flickering flame of fury, too. How can we do this? How can you go along with this? I want to yell at my parents. But I whisper, I don't understand how this is happening. My voice is barely a scratch. How can we be dangerous to the state? A poet, a chiropractor, and a high school senior?
It's not about danger. It's about fear. People are willing to trade their freedom, even for a false sense of protection.
My dad shakes his head.
There was never a democracy yet that did not commit suicide.
What does that even mean? Behind the terror, I can feel the flames of anger, burning, rising. How can we resign ourselves to this?
It's John Adams. He meant democracy is fragile. All we can do right now is go along.
My dad turns to the window and raises his eyebrows.
They've stationed police outside the door. If we don't cooperate, it will be much, much worse for all of us.
Hurry, beta, my mom says as she and my dad rush out to pack up their lives in suitcases. My head spins. My chest rises and falls, which is the only way I know I'm still breathing and standing here in the middle of my room. The bed's not made. I can't leave without making the bed. Who cares about the fucking bed? Why didn't I text David? Does he know? How am I supposed to leave here without telling him? Will he think I've disappeared? Suit number 1 told us where we are going. A relocation center. Near Manzanar. He used Manzanar like a landmark, like the word was so everyday. Like sun and grass and sky. Words you use 1,000,000 times without thinking. Like the irony wasn't lost on him because our world has no more irony in it. Only minutes are left, and I have to figure out what to take. But for how long? A couple of days? A month? The Japanese Americans were interned until World War II ended. Years. Shit. Could it be years? I grab the biggest duffel I have and start filling it with jeans, t-shirts, socks, underwear, pajamas, my black hoodie, a zip-up fleece. How cold does it get? Shoes. What shoes? A hat, gloves. What do I need? How am I supposed to do this? Books. We can have books, right? I grab a couple of books from my nightstand, knocking over a digital frame currently displaying a picture of David and me at homecoming. I pick it up and hold it to my chest. I feel giant sobs coming on again. But I can't. I don't have time. I put the frame back on my nightstand, not sure if they allow pictures at wherever they're taking us. What if they confiscate it? I'd rather have it here, at home, safe, intact. From my desk, I snatch a handful of pens and a blank notebook. There's a knock on my door. My mom. Dad's downstairs. We have to go. I'm not ready. This is mad. I can't go. Mom? My voice breaks. She moves toward me, but I hold up my palm and she stops. Make sure you remember socks and underwear. She gives me a small, wan smile. Socks and underwear. I wonder if all moms do this, try to make the terrifying seem mundane. She steps away. She knows that I need a moment. I look around the room. There's a little bit of space left in my duffel, so I take some rolls of washi tape and a blank journal I got in Paris last summer. The cover has a drawing of a girl and her dog curled up on a giant pot of red jam. The label says, Confiture des mots. I glance at my bookshelf. The yearbooks, my shoebox of notes and cards from David. I saved every note David ever passed to me in school. He laughed and called me a romantic when I asked him to write me notes instead of texting. But I loved the notes. Each one is a little gift. A tangible surprise that doesn't eat up gigs on my phone. And now I'm leaving them forever? For someone else to look at? What happens to our house? Will it be searched? Is it still ours? Too many questions and no answers, and I desperately want to take that box with me, but there is no room and no time. A door shuts downstairs, and my mom calls up for me. I pick up my duffel and turn off the light. But before I shut the door, I go back and straighten the Kanta quilt on my bed. I see Fluffy, a brown stuffed dog with one ear almost falling off, who joined me on my first day of nursery school. It was the only way I'd allow my parents to leave. He made me feel secure. My impulse is to take him, but I leave Fluffy on my pillow, where he has spent thousands of nights in a place that was once safe. I stomp down the stairs. I reach into my pocket, an instinct to grab the phone that isn't there. I clench my empty hand into a fist, and a tear plops onto my knuckle. What would I text to David if I even had a chance? Goodbye? I love you? Find me? I meet my parents in the foyer. There are a million shards in my heart, but the one that really stabs is having my damn phone taken away. Maybe it's dumb to think of it this way, but it's not only my phone. It's all my pictures, every memory of school and tennis team and David. I stifle my sobs. Dread clutches me, but so does anger. They didn't merely take my phone, they took my voice, my choice. An invisible hand pushes us outside the door. The nights are so quiet here. That's one thing I always liked about our little town. The crickets in summer, the trees whispering on the breeze. You can actually see stars. But not tonight. Tonight, there is only dark sky. I take a last look inside. A guard has his hand on our doorknob, on our door. He's going to pull it closed. But the dishes... Are there still dishes in the sink? I can't remember if we loaded the dinner plates into the dishwasher. Will someone do the dishes? My mom hates leaving dishes overnight. The door slams behind us. My parents don't even look. I swing my head around. There are cars at the curb, the van we saw earlier, and more exclusion guards. The suits. The suits are conferring with the chief of police. There is talking around me. I hear words, but the words don't make sense. Like everyone is speaking in tongues. My parents shuffle me into the back seat of the chief of police's car and shut the door. There's no air. I try to open the door, but apparently you can't open the back seat doors from the inside of a police car. So I watch as my parents exchange words with suit number 1, who hands them some papers. Then they turn to the chief, who also has something to say, but seems to be having a hard time looking my parents in the eye. We know the chief. We've known him since his daughter Ivy and I were in kindergarten together. My dad nods. My mom stares at him blankly. Then the chief opens the back door for them, and they slide in next to me. I move over to make space for them. We don't look at one another. We don't say anything. It's like we're all in mourning, but for different things in our own way. The chief starts up the car. I see something, someone running toward us. I squint into the darkness. I can't see. David? Could it be David? Does he know? Did he see me? The chief pulls the car away from the curb. I yell David's name, but the chief doesn't respond. It's like no one can hear me. I strain to see, but the chief has the light on inside the car, and all I can see is the reflection of a girl who doesn't really look like me. I try to roll the window down, but it won't roll down. I look at the girl in the window. Her face is puffy and red, and her watery reflection looks like a ghost. I look at my parents. They're ghosts, too. The world has shattered, and all that's left is this alternate universe full of broken people with nothing to hold on to. Chapter 5. We are silent for a long time as we pass through the town center to head onto the highway to Los Angeles. Car lights whiz by us. Even in the middle of the night, there's traffic in LA. The chief is in the right lane, driving impossibly slow, like he's trying to prolong the ride to scare us more. But he doesn't really need to bother. There's so much anxiety in this car that it feels like the back seat is shrinking, crushing us into a small cube of vinyl and sweat and fear. The chief clears his throat.
Now, you all know I'm sorry about this, formality. Doing my job, following orders that come from above my pay grade. I'm sure you folks will be cleared in no time. The bigwigs need to see you're not a threat.
He's trying to fill the silence because he's uncomfortable, but all he's done is make it worse. My dad continues to stare at his own feet. My mom takes his hand. Say something, I want to tell them. Call him out. He knows us. Ask him how he can do this. I watch my parents, but they don't say a word. I look at my palms, tracing the remnants of the tiny crescent marks that I pressed into my own skin. Words rise from my gut to my throat, and they taste bitter. How's Ivy? I ask the chief. My parents both swing their heads in my direction. My mom grabs my hand and squeezes it, an indication I should stop talking. But fear and anger are waging a war inside me right now. and I can't stop myself. If I can't leave this car, if I have to hear the chief's following orders excuse, the least I can do, the one thing I can do, is remind him that he knows us. He's escorting us away from our whole life. And I don't think it's my job to make him feel comfortable about that, even if my mom is giving me the death stare to silence me. Did she decide on a college yet? I don't have the energy or acting skills to make my voice sound chirpy like I want to, so my delivery is totally deadpan, which I suppose fits with how I feel. I see the chief glance into his rearview mirror, and I make eye contact with him for a second before he looks away.
She's fine. Thanks for asking. Not quite settled on a school, though.
Yeah, I say. I know the feeling. Maybe my mom is right when she says I'm sometimes stubborn for no reason. I imagine they aren't saying anything because they're afraid something worse could happen. I'm not sure what else we can lose, but if I'm being honest, I'm terrified that we'll find out. Union Station in Los Angeles is an Art Deco Mission Revival mashup wonder of inlaid marble tile, vaulted wood ceilings, and light fixtures that would make Frank Lloyd Wright proud. We've been here before. Normally, I'd close my eyes, ignoring the gum wrappers and wadded-up tissues that litter the sticky floor, to wonder at this echo of a time when people dressed up for dinner on trains with names like the Sunset Limited and the Pacific Sunrise, when train travel was romantic and featured in black and white movies. But now, as I stand outside in the broken quiet of the night, my synapses are firing with a million questions at once. I wrap my arms around my body, literally trying to hold myself still, because my fight-or-flight adrenaline is in overdrive, and I don't know which way it's going to lead me. Both, I think. There are guards here, too. Same as the ones who were at my house, but more. Dozens more. This time, under the glare of extra lights that have been set up outside, I focus so I see them more clearly. There's been increased security in public places, airports, train stations, even shopping malls. Somehow, seeing soldiers with giant guns strapped across their chests always makes me feel more scared and less safe. Maybe scaring people is part of the plan. But the soldiers here, the exclusion guards, their sandstone-colored uniforms look crisp, new. Jacket, pants, cap, boots, and bulletproof vest. Like the kind the police have, but more heavy-duty and with shiny black plates across the front. Like something Batman might wear. Our military is diverse, but not this shiny new branch. They're all white, it seems. A victory for nostalgic racists longing for the good old days of segregated units and separate bathrooms. A gauntlet of guards lines the sidewalks to the entrance, some at the curb, others with their backs to the stone building. Their eyes alert. Their fingers aren't on the triggers, but the air is so charged, it feels that way. I notice an American flag patch on each soldier's sleeve, and below that a black rectangle with Exclusion Authority embroidered in white. Outside the main entrance of the train station is the first checkpoint, a series of desks. That's what the chief calls it. There are a couple dozen other people lined up, each with a bag in hand. Some other Desis, an African-American family, a few people who look like they might be from the Middle East. It's after midnight, and everyone looks exhausted, almost jet-lagged. And it's quiet. So quiet you can hear the buzz of the makeshift lighting that has been set up outside.
"This is where I leave you,"
the chief says. as if he's dropping us off for vacation instead of pointing us toward a sign that shows people where to line up according to last name, which is next to a sign with enumerated instructions of what to do. This is Los Angeles. I'm used to seeing signs in public places with instructions in multiple languages. But not here. English only. And the chief gestures us toward a damn desk so casually, as if men with giant guns meant to keep us quiet and herded in is normal. It's not normal. So why are people acting like it is? The chief extends his hand toward my dad, who takes it in his own. But when I see my dad's face, he seems almost as surprised as I am that he's acquiesced to this handshake. Maybe it's a reflex he couldn't help. "Good luck, Ali," the chief says, then quickly darts away, as if he's the one who is afraid of us. The irony is not lost on me. "Thanks for your service, Chief." I don't hide my sarcasm. My mom shushes me, even though the chief is probably no longer in earshot. "Layla, you really need to watch your tone," she whispers. "You're far too sarcastic for your own good. There might be a time for it, but it's certainly not right now." I shake my head. "Mom, I think tone policing is the least of our problems."
"Maybe," my dad adds. "But your mom is right. Don't draw attention to yourself. We need to blend in if we're going to get through this."
This? I don't suppose any of us know what to call the experience yet. Like World War I wasn't called that when people were fighting it. How could it have been when they didn't know what would come after? Anyway, probably no one is thinking about an appropriately weighty yet catchy phrase to call our quagmire right now. We're all too busy looking away and trying to believe it's a collective nightmare we will eventually wake up from. I guess it's pretty bad when a nightmare feels like a privilege. We approach the station for A through E. It's essentially a small desk with a black suit behind it.
"Reassignment documents,"
he demands. An exclusion guard at his side looks up and away, not making eye contact. Like everyone else. I wonder if it's in their regulations. No eye contact with the Muslims. My dad hands him the documents we were given back at home. Home. It's disconcerting to even think about what's happening there. Are the suits ransacking it? Destroying our things? The black suit takes our cards from my dad and places each one over a reader. The kind the TSA uses to scan your passport when you come back from a trip abroad. He hands them back to us.
"Go inside. Report to window 3 for your IDs. It'll be on your right as you enter the building."
We shuffle inside Union Station, along with nameless others. There are at least 100 people in line at the old ticket windows, struggling to find a place to look that isn't a painful reminder of what our collective reality is. All of them with a bag in hand, and a stunned look on their faces. Someone cries out, breaking the silence. Then there's sobbing from one group, and then another. The clacking of computer keys continues, neither machine nor operator moved by tears. A couple of little kids, toddlers, run around, ignorant of what is happening. A baby screams. My mom once told me that she always knew what my cries meant, each one a little different. Hungry, a wet diaper, tired, wanting attention. But a scream? My throat swells and tears reach my eyes. Those kids, that baby, they have no idea what they are about to lose. I guess I don't either. Who even knows what's happening exactly, except that we were taken from our homes and now we're about to board a train to somewhere. I tap my heel hard against the marble mosaic floor, then harder. I shiver. This place is a tomb. The authority suit at window 3 reels us in with a beckoning finger. My dad hands over our cards with the QR codes. The suit grabs my left hand and tries to pull it forward, but I snatch it back, a natural reaction to his unwelcome touch. The man raises his eyes to meet mine, his jaw set. He turns to my dad and then looks like he's going to call a guard over. My dad grabs my hand and offers it to the suit.
She'll comply.
That's what he says. My jaw drops. Those words. She'll comply. We will do what we're told. We'll go along. We won't cause trouble. Don't hurt us. That's what my dad means. The man clears his throat and nods.
We need to stamp the inside of your wrist with your ID number.
I snap my mouth shut. I turn my hand over, palm facing up. What else am I supposed to do? He grabs it and places it in a black machine that looks like it could make espresso.
Hold still,
he says, as a 2-inch rectangular metal bar descends and presses into the soft flesh on the inside of my wrist for a few seconds. When the bar rises up, I see nothing on my skin. It's UV, ultraviolet, invisible ink. Permanent, the man explains, like an automaton. He doesn't look me in the eye either. No one does. He stamps my parents' wrists and then gives us seat assignments on the train and warns us not to sit elsewhere. As we head to the platform, I grip my wrist like someone has cut me with a knife. I hold it close to my face, then farther away, squinting, holding my wrist up to the fluorescent slants of light that pass through the hall. I can't feel the mark. I can't see it. But it's there. Forever. I rub at the thin skin on the underside of my wrist until it turns red. The platform is full, but there's no jostling. The authority has frightened all the fidgeting out of us. A loud, monotone voice over the intercom instructs us.
Go directly to the train car you have been assigned. Present your left wrist for scanning as you enter the car. Sit in your assigned seat. The exclusion authority thanks you for your cooperation.
My mother takes my hand as we enter our train car. I try to pull it away, but she only squeezes it tighter. Looking around, I shake my head like I need a double take. The car is a normal train car. I don't know what I was expecting. I look down the aisle. A rubber mat runs along the center with rows of 3 navy blue cloth-covered seats on either side. Foggy, scuffed-up windows offer limited views onto the dim platform. A chemically vanilla smell wafts around the car, the kind you spray to mask pet or unpleasant cooking odors. A regular, nondescript, conventional train that has probably been decommissioned since California Rail has gone high speed. There are seats on these trains. They're not cattle cars, like the kind I've seen in my history textbooks, carrying people to their deaths. But we're being forced onto them with no real idea of where we're going or what to expect at the end of the line. I feel pressed. Like when we read The Crucible last year. I couldn't wrap my mind around Giles Corey being pressed to death, stones being laid upon his chest, one after another, to make him admit to witchcraft, and he refused to speak except to say, "More weight," when they urged him to confess. That's what the air feels like in this car, why it feels hard to breathe. We're being pressed by fear and hatred and the law. The dozen or so people in this car are all like me, going through the motions, stepping forward, trying not to run screaming from the train into the arms of exclusion guards with large guns. No one speaks. My tongue is wood. We find our seats. 18A, B, and C. I slide toward the window, my mother in the middle and my father in the aisle seat. My parents put their bags on the luggage rack, and mine fits under the seat in front of me. Remembering a poem, I lean over to my dad. There was a man with tongue of wood who essayed to sing. I pause, waiting for my dad to finish the Stephen Crane verse, but he pats me on the arm and turns away. This is our little game. One of us quotes a line of a poem, and the other quotes a line in response. It's a variation of an Urdu game, Bayat Bazi, where one person quotes a line from a poem, and the other has to quote another line of poetry that begins with the last letter of the verse used by the previous player. That seemed impossible to me, so Dad eased the rules. But he doesn't feel like playing, and I don't know what I was thinking. That a line of poetry could make any of this better? But I whisper the lines to myself anyway. There was a man with tongue of wood who essayed to sing, and in truth it was lamentable. But there was one who heard the clip-clapper of this tongue of wood and knew what the man wished to sing, and with that the singer was content. Perhaps my dad was right to brush this poem off. I always think of David as the person who knows what I wish to sing. And now all I imagine is him showing up at my house, ringing the doorbell over and over, and hearing it echo in the empty rooms. I wrap my arms around my middle and stare out the train window into the dark. My own reflection stares back at me, but I barely recognize myself. The train jerks forward as we pull away from the station. My mom puts her face in her hands, and muffled sobs rise from seats around the car. My dad envelops my mother in his arms, kisses the top of her head, and whispers, "I'm sorry," over and over. I put my hand on the dirty glass and watch the city disappear in a haze. As we move past Santa Monica, I catch a last tiny glimpse of the ocean, while a thread of dawn inches its way into the darkness before we track inland, north and east and north again. The last overly watered, lush golf course gives way to rock and scrub and desert brush. We race by Vasquez Rocks, and my heart seizes for a moment as I think of David and our many hikes there amid the ancient stones, the slabs jutting into the air, sweeping into sharp peaks against azure sky. Once we took a lesser-traveled path off the Pacific Coast Trail and followed it to the top of a ridge where we discovered a golden plateau of desert sunflowers. We passed the afternoon in delicious solitude and hiked back down in the fading light, a withering crown of yellow blooms encircling my black hair. It was perfect. I didn't know then how the memory would be a gift. The train jolts and slows, recapturing my attention before gaining speed again. My mom's head rests on my dad's shoulder. I watch as his heavy eyelids droop and then close. We haven't slept since yesterday. Probably no one on this train has. It's only been hours since we were taken from our homes, but each excruciating moment since has felt stretched, elongated beyond what it should be. It's like all of us on this train are part of an Einstein relativity experiment. Every American has been hurtling through space at the speed of light, except us. We've been left behind to age, harnessed by Earth's unyielding gravity. I should close my eyes, rest up for the unknown world that lies ahead. But I'm antsy. I need to move. I slip by my snoozing parents and walk down the aisle toward the next car in the bathroom. Some of the heads turn to look at me. Others don't bother. But everyone who can't sleep has similar glazed-over, red-rimmed eyes. I press the large black rectangular button that opens the inner door and step into the wide metal vestibule between train cars, then into the next car, which looks empty except for a couple of people who seem to be dozing in the front. I take a few more steps forward. One of the sleeping men moves, and I see him. Shit, a guard! There's barely time to panic. Quickly, I turn on my heel, hoping that maybe he hasn't seen me, or that he thinks it was a dream. I open the door and step back into the vestibule. It jostles and I feel dizzy, like I need to sit down right now. But I also feel rage, because why do I have this sick, panicky feeling when all I wanted was to stand up and stretch my legs and maybe pee? The door swooshes behind me. I turn to face a stocky guard. He's so aggressively tanned, he's almost orange. We're alone in the small metal vestibule, desert passing by through the small window.
"What are you doing out of your seat?"
he demands. Instinctively, I take a step back, stumble, but regain my balance. I was looking for the bathroom, I manage to say. He scrunches his light brown eyes at me and clenches his jaw. But he seems to look through me, like I'm not there.
"You were told to stay in your seat."
He speaks slowly, enunciating each word, bursting with restrained resentment. "I'm sorry. I thought—"
"You thought what?"
He takes another step toward me. I inch back farther, closer to the door at the other end of the vestibule, which will take me to my car, where I'll be safe. Safe? I catch myself, because there is no safe for me. Suddenly, I'm acutely aware of how small this space is and how loud the train wheels sound against the tracks, and I wonder if people will hear me if I scream. The door behind the guard slides open again. A tall, broad-shouldered exclusion guard steps into the vestibule. God, now there are two of them, and I have literally nowhere to run. My hands shake. I can't call for any help, because the people who are enforcing the law on this train are the ones I'm afraid of. Every fiber in my body wants to scream and cry, and I want to pound my fists into the metal walls.
"What's going on here?"
the tall guard asks. His dirty blonde hair is cropped short. He twists his sandstone infantry cap in his hands. His sleeves are rolled up, exposing a small tattoo on the inside of his right forearm. 2 arrows crossed, an N between the arrowheads. I turn my eyes away so he doesn't see me looking. The stocky guard straightens up and salutes. I guess the exclusion guards have ranks too.
"Sir, this internee was out of her seat, sir."
The word slaps me across the face. Internee. Is that what we are now? Speak. I need to force myself to speak up. If I don't speak for myself, no one will. "I'm sorry. I was trying to find a bathroom." Compass tattoo studies me, narrowing his eyes a bit. I bite my lip and glance down at my shoes. Am I shaking? It feels like I'm shaking. He clears his throat.
"Private, I think we can let this slide." "Sir, the internees were given clear orders, and so were we." "There are bathrooms on this car for a reason. We can't expect all of them to stop having bodily functions, can we?"
The stocky guard glares at me, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, then squares himself to the other guard.
"No, sir."
Normally, any conversation that includes the phrase bodily functions and me in the same sentence would have me burning with embarrassment. But not now. Now I'm enraged because my bathroom use has to be regulated and is up for debate.
You can go back to your seat, Private.
Sir. Yes, sir, the guard says, and steps back into his car. I watch the door slide shut. I still have to use the bathroom, I blurt out. I don't know why I say this. I should go back to my car. I don't even really need to use the bathroom. But I feel like somehow I should assert my right to do so, which is maybe a stupid hill to die on. Compass Tattoo nods.
Fine. Then hurry up and get back to your seat. And stay there.
I can't tell if his words are a caution or a threat. I've mostly been trying to avoid looking at the guards directly, but as I turn to leave, I raise my eyes to meet his. He holds my gaze. A caution? Or a threat? Chapter 6. Independence, California. The town where we disembark for internment is called Independence. I balk at the irony of the name, and at how sunny the day is. There should be dark clouds and storms, permanent night, but the earth, the sun, and the moon keep on their course, utterly oblivious. A loud voice barks from the PA.
Stay with your families. You will board buses for Camp Mobius by identification number. Show the underside of your left wrist as you exit the station. Stay calm and exit in an orderly fashion.
Camp Mobius? I guess that's what they're calling it. They give it a name, like it's a summer sleepaway camp and not a prison.
We're in the first group. Let's get in line.
My dad walks numbly forward. How can you be so calm about this? I hiss at my parents. I know it's not their fault, but I'm tired and nothing makes sense, and I desperately want an explanation for something, for anything. My mom takes my elbow. Layla, enough. My mom's voice is low, but not soft. We're not calm like we're meditating. We're keeping our cool so we don't get shot. Understand? They're not going to shoot us. We're American citizens. They can't. Our government is jailing us because of our faith, a voice from behind me says. I spin around to face a girl who looks about my age. They can do whatever they want. They already are. It's a brave new world. We haven't gotten to that book on the syllabus yet, I say. What happens? Spoilers. The girl grins. I like her already. I appreciate your commitment to protect the secrets of nearly century-old literature. I pride myself on my anti-spoiler crusade. I laugh a little. So you wouldn't tell me the focus of the next Star Wars anthology film, even if you knew? Never. But obviously it should be Lando. Duh. I'm Layla, by the way. Aisha. First of my name, protector of stories, mother of dragons, and soon-to-be interned Muslim. If you're Indian, that's two things we have in common. Not so much that dragon thing, though. It's Game of Thrones. You never read it? Watched it? I shake my head no. Your loss. And I'm Pakistani, but, you know, a desi is a desi. Show your wrist, an exclusion guard officer calls out. I move forward in the line and show the inside of my left wrist. I feel naked. The guard passes a UV light over my arm, and a small fluorescent barcode appears at the base of my hand, a number unique to me. 0000105. It doesn't hurt when he scans me, but I still feel like I've been branded. The guard nods, and I board a bus with my parents. We crowd onto a single bench seat in the middle of the school bus. Aisha, her younger brother, and her parents file past. She nods at me. See you when we get there. The 2-lane highway from Independence to the camp is quiet, except for the small caravan of buses heading into the desert. The landscape is bleak, but undeniably beautiful. A liquid blue sky stands out against the snow-tipped peaks of the Sierra Nevada, and the sun gleams. Too bright, almost. Can nature be ironic? Destructive, yes, but nature's overwhelming power is amoral. If people die in a storm, they're collateral damage, like any other object in the storm's path. A lamppost, a car, a house. The unintentional side effects of wind or wave or current. Unlike people, nature carries out no vendettas. Yet the simple loveliness of the sky and sun and mountains makes me feel like nature is complicit in my country's betrayal. After 10 short minutes, the buses pass Manzanar, the old Japanese-American internment camp. It's desolate. I shudder when I see the weathered wooden sign that declares Manzanar War Relocation Center. Every head in our bus turns to stare as we drive by, and I'm taken by how huge the space is. It's the desert, and nothing is out here but empty land and what looks like thousands of acres enclosed by a simple wooden fence. There are a few barracks and a sign pointing to the visitor center. Manzanar was a historic site run by the National Park Service, my mom told me. But a couple of months ago, the Park Service lost its funding and this place was shut down. I glance back as we drive on. A tattered American flag still flies atop a pole in the center of the camp. Everything looks sepia-toned except the flag, with its faded red stripes and blue field of stars. We drive on. Those abandoned, flimsy barracks at Manzanar occupy my brain. Is that how we're going to live now? There's a damp patch of sweat on my jeans in the shape of my right palm. I feel the panic and anxiety coming off everyone in silent waves. I don't think any of us really believe this is happening. The buses slow down as we approach a perimeter of chain-link fence that must be, I don't know, at least 15 feet high. All around, as far as I can see, the fence is topped with curling razor wire. Watchtowers rise into the sky, guards with guns looming above us. It's prison. I close my eyes and feel my mom squeeze my hand. I hear her muttering a prayer to herself. I join her. I wonder if others felt this way. The Japanese Americans who were imprisoned during World War II. Did they also feel this surreal separation from the experience? Like they were detached from their bodies, watching themselves enter this camp like ghosts, shades of who they were? Did they wonder how long they would be here? Could they have imagined it would be years? Did some try to block it all out, compartmentalize, imagine that it was only one more day? Because we aren't even through this giant electronic gate yet, and I feel like my real life is already a million miles away. Exclusion guards at the gate entrance clear the drivers after a visual inspection of the inside, outside, and underside of the buses. The gate opens, and the buses enter the camp, kicking up so much dust I can barely see out. "Everybody off," the driver snaps at us after coming to an abrupt stop inside the gate. "Single file. Report to the hub." He points at the light gray behemoth of a building that squats in the center of camp. "Register by last names and get your quarters assigned." Like leashed zombies, a few hundred of us stagger toward the largest building on the site. Families walk in tight huddles, arms around one another. Lots of brown and black faces, like you'd see at any mosque. There are also Muslims here who could pass as white, probably of Arab or Persian descent. White, but without all the privilege. One detail that's impossible to miss: just like in the train station, every person with a gun is white. And not white like maybe they're Bosnian. The kind of white that thinks internment camps are going to make America great again. The hub is marked by an American flag fluttering 50 feet up in the air and large black plastic letters above the door. Mobius. Exclusion authority bureaucrats mill around on their phones amid a heavy presence of armed exclusion guards. Some authority guys step in and out of a gray modular building attached to the hub. An office of some sort? As we proceed to the hub, I start to understand the extent of the camp and how the razor-wired, sky-high security fence pens us in for miles, cameras trained on us. And there are rows and rows of FEMA trailers. I've seen them on TV before, the trailers the government puts up for people who've lost their homes in natural disasters. But now the natural disaster is being Muslim. My vision clouds. I blink against the dust, and my knees buckle a little. I grab onto my dad's arm. Every muscle in his arm is taut. He straightens his backpack. He and my mom are holding hands, and I catch them looking at each other. They're run down. The few wrinkles they have are highlighted by this dust that's blowing everywhere. They look so small, so human. When you're a kid, you think your parents are invincible and all-knowing, and then you start to grow up and realize that they're simply flawed human beings trying to make their way in the world the best they can. We all look like ants marching in this dust straight into a giant trap where we'll be stuck, or where we'll be fed poison that we inadvertently spread to the rest of the group. I bite my lip, but I don't even feel it. What's that thing people always say about history? Unless we know our history, we're doomed to repeat it? Never forget? Isn't that the lesson? But we always forget. Forgetting is in the American grain. Someone yells out ahead of us. There's some kind of tussle. No, no, no! I hear a boy scream and then see him run away from his mom. I suppose it's his mom, a middle-aged woman wearing a bright blue turban-style hijab. The boy, with curly chestnut-brown hair, is maybe 8 or 9 years old. She runs after him and grabs him, speaking to him in Arabic. The crowd parts around them. Then her son hits her in the face. There's a collective gasp from the crowd. When the woman reaches up to her cheek, the boy breaks free, pushes against anyone standing in his way, and starts running back toward the main gate where the buses entered. He doesn't get far. 3 exclusion guards draw guns and aim them at him. A kid. They're pointing their weapons at a kid. A 4th guard grabs him and pins him to the ground. I'm frozen. I literally can't move. The action slows down. I hear the muffled scream of the boy's mother as she runs through the crowd, shoving past people, some of whom stumble and fall and curse, adding to the chaos. Please, don't hurt him. He doesn't understand. The mother cries. She claws at the guard who holds her son down. He shoves her off and she falls backward. One of the other guards directs his gun away from the boy and toward the mom. The little boy is crying. The mom's piercing wails seem to echo through the camp and into the mountains far in the distance. Then another man, compass tattoo from the train, appears. He says something I can't hear, then puts his hand on the shoulder of the guard who has the boy pinned down. The guard nods and releases him. Compass Tattoo helps the little boy up. The mother scurries to her son on her knees and tenderly wraps him in her arms, trying to protect him, shifting her body away from Compass Tattoo. But he doesn't touch his gun or hit her. He whispers something in her ear and then takes her by the elbow, helping her up. The woman wipes her face and keeps her arm around her son's shoulders. The boy's face is blank, expressionless. Quietly, the woman leads him back to their place in line, the murmuring crowd parting to let them through. The guards put away their guns, and one of them shouts, "Show's over!" And we continue, herded like animals, toward the hub. Show's over. My God, a show. Like our pain is entertainment. I look at the guard with the tattoo, and then to the gun at his side. He catches my eye, nods, and takes long strides to a black-suited man who has been watching the scene unfold from a short distance. The man's face is red and blotchy, but not like he's sunburned, more like his tie is too tight and he can't get enough air. Who wears a suit and tie in the desert? When I turn to my parents, I see tears running down both their faces. We join the crowd and continue our walk. No one talks. Silent as the grave. I take a shaky breath, and then another. I say Nani's favorite prayer to myself. I'm so glad she's not here to see this. I try to find solace in her memory. But as I'm saying the words, my muscles tense and my breathing grows loud. I say the prayer again. But it doesn't feel meditative as it usually does. It doesn't calm me or quell my anger. Thoughts and prayers. God, all the times I've heard politicians utter those words. Aurora, Orlando, Las Vegas, Sandy Hook, Umpqua, Virginia Tech, San Bernardino, Sutherland Springs, Parkland, Santa Fe. I don't have a measure for how I should feel or what I should think, but thoughts and prayers weren't enough to save any of those people in any of those places from getting shot. And they're not going to be enough for us now. Prayers can only go so far. I remember something else my Nani used to tell me. Praying is important, but you can't simply pray for what you want. You have to act. We line up outside the hub by last name and proceed through the security check. Full-body scanners and luggage imaging, like at the airport, but with a ticket to nowhere. After the scan, we walk inside the main hall of the hub, where dozens of registration tables are set up. I soak in this bizarre nightmare, scanning the camp and what appears to be the only entrance gate, heavily guarded, and the watchtowers and the razor wire fence as far as I can see. And the people. Everywhere, all of them dazed like me. It's like a United Nations of internees. Old and young, black and brown. Some in hijab and kufis and the traditional dress of their ancestral countries. Many in t-shirts and jeans and shorts. But we're all citizens of the United States, forced on a dead-end journey into the desert. The Muslims who aren't citizens are going on a much longer trip. Deportation. Green cards and visas instantly invalidated with a stroke of the presidential pen. Maybe they're the lucky ones, if they have other homes to go back to, take their chances in. For those of us who were born here, America is literally the only home we've ever known. And all those angry mobs on television chanting, "Go home." They don't get that this is our home. Our turn comes to check in and get our room assignments. An auburn-haired woman with a tight bun and pursed red lips peruses the laptop on the desk in front of her, reading the data from our barcodes. Ali Sophia Leila Amin. She says it like a fact, but apparently wants an answer because she gives us a hard stare when we stand there in silence.
Yes, I'm Ali. My wife, Sophia, and this is our daughter, Layla.
My dad places his hand in turn on our shoulders, like he's introducing us at a social event.
You've been assigned to Mercury Home number 17, Block 2,
the woman says, and hands us 3 key cards.
Report to the Hub Auditorium at 1700 hours for orientation.
Is Mercury Home the new euphemism for trailer? I ask. The woman raises an eyebrow at me. My dad pulls me back by my elbow. Where's Block 2? My mom asks.
Here's a map. There's a file titled Regulations on the home screen of your media unit in your dwelling. Familiarize yourself with it.
I trace my infinity charm with my finger, thinking of my phone in the hands of a stranger, or maybe even destroyed. All my pictures with David, the tennis team selfies. Lost. Everywhere around us are uniformed men with guns. It's terrifying, but I feel a rage rising in me too. Do we have phones in our trailers? Even prisoners are allowed phone calls, I say.
Layla.
I hear the fear in my dad's voice when he chastises me.
You're allowed pre-approved calls. There are phones in the recreation area of the hub.
The woman points down a hall at the end of the large open room we're in.
You can request to make a phone call from the hub, subject to approval. They'll explain at the orientation.
Are we also allowed to eat? I ask. My stomach has been grumbling since we got off the bus, and I feel my hangriness coming on. The woman blows out a puff of air. I can tell I'm trying her patience.
There are box lunches waiting for you near the exit.
What about news? How will we find out what's happening outside?
Us.
The woman reminds us of the name of the camp like we can't speak English, and that somehow speaking slowly and very loudly will suddenly make us fluent. We do actually speak English, I say. Just FYI. Layla, my mom says sternly, and takes my hand. The woman gives me a sour look but ignores me, continuing where she left off without missing a beat.
The director decides what news you get at Mobius and grants you access via the media units in your dwelling. All the answers you need will be given to you at the orientation.
The woman, clearly irritated, looks straight past me.
Next,
she says. We stand there for a moment, unsure of what to do. The confusion and anger of hundreds of people fill the hall and make the air heavy and hard to breathe.
Next!
The woman raises her voice, on the edge of yelling. We walk out of the hub and into the bright daylight. I look up, shielding my eyes from the sun. A small drone hovers in the air above us. It pauses, like it's looking at me, and then flies toward the red-faced man in the suit, who wipes a handkerchief across his brow. The drone is shiny red metal, smooth, an ellipsoid. But as it approaches the man, 3 black legs unfold from its belly and allow it to land vertically, like a mechanical spider leaping from air to ground. It follows behind the man like a pet. Drones are everywhere, but I've never seen one like that, like it's almost alive. The Mercury homes are arranged by blocks, 8 identical mobile homes on each side of the block, tan with white trim around the windows and 3 aluminum steps leading to a white door with the house number on it. A small metal nameplate on the door spells out Mercury Home. I laugh, imagining that FEMA purchased these trailers from some company trying to appeal to the retro rich hipster crowd. They're not shiny like Airstreams or as cool. But I could totally see someone trying to retrofit one of these and renting it on Airbnb, appealing to people who don't really want to rough it, but want to pretend like they are. The trailer sales must have been a bust, because they've been downgraded to prison glamping. My mom waves the key card in front of the round electronic lock pad, and we enter. I glance around. Bile rises in my throat. I guess Mercury homes are better than the shanties we saw when we passed Manzanar. It's a mobile home, but it's still prison. The front door opens into the common area, a combo kitchen, dining, living room. The unit is spare, narrow. Square footage-wise, it feels smaller than our kitchen and dining area at home. So I'm guessing cabin fever is going to come on fast and strong. My mom places our camp-issued lunches on the compact table, sniffs the air and rubs her nose. The entire space smells like the inside of a bottle of bleach. I wonder what they were trying to scrub away. My dad clears his throat and goes to open one of the rectangular windows above the built-in sofa covered in tannish brown vinyl. He jimmies it up a few inches, but then immediately shuts it when he gets dust in his eye. My mom walks over and tells him to sit down so she can get a better look. The vinyl squeaks as he takes a seat. I grab a sandwich from our box lunches. Peanut butter and jelly on white bread. Of course. I scarf it down in a few bites. Then I walk a few strides through the narrow kitchen to 2 side-by-side doors and throw them open. "Found the bedrooms!" I shout at my parents. But there's really no reason to raise my voice. Even though they are at the opposite end of the trailer, they're still basically within spitting distance. My mom nods at me. Looks like my dad's eyes are clear of dust, but they're still glassy and wet. My mom's are too. It hurts to see them this way. They look old and tired, like they've walked here from home. Our real home. Our only home. I remember reading about people who, well, aren't in our situation, not exactly, but who are displaced, uprooted, and how some of them try to make the best of it, keeping home as a feeling in their hearts, not an actual physical place. But I don't want to do that. I can't. It would feel like a betrayal to my old life, to myself. I have one home, and it's not going to be this place. The government might be able to steal our lives from us, but they can't steal our thoughts. I close my eyes for a second and take a halting breath. I peer into the rooms. The bedroom on the left has a double bed, and the one on the right has bunks. "I think this one is yours." I point to the room on the left. "Unless you two want the bunks?" My parents look up at me with forced smiles. They've barely said a word since sitting down. I imagine they want to say something, I don't know, parental. But they must feel like I do. Like their bodies are full of holes. I enter the room on the right. Low metal bunks are pushed up against the wall. The mattresses and pillows have plastic on them. On the opposite wall is a square window that looks onto the mountains in the distance. Below the window are a blue plastic chair and a small desk that drops down from the wall like an airplane tray table. Next to the desk is a tiny round metal sink. In the corner is a closet full of shelves with a clear plastic curtain serving as a door. I swivel around and take a deep breath. The room is about the size of my old bathroom. I have no idea what to do next. I know I need to busy myself because if I continue standing here, I'll slowly fade away until I cease to exist. I wonder if that's how they did it. The Japanese Americans who were sent to camps in World War II. Maybe they survived by going through the motions, day by day, waking, counting the hours, eating dust, sleeping. That's my immediate plan for now. Get through it. Survive the madness. Keep my eyes open. I unzip my roller. I neatly refold all my clothes and place them on the shelves. I save some shelf space for toiletries, since the sink barely has room for a small cup and my toothbrush. I also find a spot for my paperbacks, Great American Poetry, and Macbeth. Neither is exactly in my top 5 desert island books, but I guess I wasn't discerning when shoving stuff into my duffel. Next, I tear open the bedding package and make up the bottom bunk, saving the other set of sheets. I'm not sure how we do laundry, which might kill me because I love the feel of fresh sheets. But the touch of this internment chic bedding doesn't exactly scream high thread count. An oval mylar mirror hangs above the sink, and when I wash my hands, I notice my grimy face. It's the dust. I rinse my eyes with cold water and scrub my face until the white washcloth is gray-brown. I wash it with hand soap, then hang it to dry on the towel rack screwed into the wall. I walk back into the main room. Where's the toilet and shower? My mom leaves the couch and takes maybe 10 short steps into the kitchen and opens 2 small doors that I thought were cabinets. One is a shower, the other a toilet. I see they spared no expense to incarcerate us, I say. My mom hugs me, tight. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. We had no idea it would come to this. I let my mother hold me. When she steps back, her eyes shine with tears. I want to say something to calm her, make her feel a little less horrible, but a tiny black fisheye camera attached to the ceiling distracts me. They're watching us in here, too? Are we allowed to use the bathroom privately, or are they surveilling our bodily functions as well? I burn at the violation. I have to get out. The walls of this trailer feel like they're closing in on me. I can't breathe. I'm going to go look around. Maybe I'll find the laundry room. I'm not sure you should be roaming the grounds. I don't know if it's safe. Mom, please. There are tons of people outside. Besides, there are so many armed exclusion guards around. It's not like I can get mugged. The men with guns are the ones I'm worried about, my mom replies. She turns to look at my dad, who gives me a small smile that looks like it takes some effort.
Fine, but be back in an hour. We don't want to be late to the orientation.
I grab a key card and tuck it into my back pocket. Don't worry. Possibly the most ridiculous 2 words I could ever say to my parents. I step outside, blinking against the blazing sun. I walk past row after row of identical Mercury homes. Little kids play outside, kicking up dust while their parents mill around, faces drawn and blank, fear in their eyes. Not sure what to do or how to be. I can see some of them trying to make the little ones feel comfortable by sporting uneasy smiles whenever a child looks at them. I think about my dad's smile before I left. It's impossible for me to understand what it must feel like to be a parent, to know that one of your sacred duties is to protect your child, and then to feel that you're failing and completely helpless to change that. Layla? I hear my name from behind me. I turn, raising my hand above my eyes. Aisha? The girl I met at the train station. She runs her hand through her bobbed hair and smiles at me. Couldn't stand it inside anymore either? It's like a tomb, she says. She pauses a beat, glancing at a guard as he passes by us. We're in the same block, 3 trailer homes down from you. I gesture down the row of Mercury homes, and she joins me in a slow walk. There are armed guards posted every 2 blocks. Their fingers aren't on the triggers of their guns, but it feels that way. How do you know where our trailer is? I ask. There's a directory in the media unit of the trailer, Aisha says, then widens her eyes in mock horror. You mean you haven't gone through the regulations file yet? I smirk. I was saving the regs file for pre-bedtime viewing. I hear it's riveting. Total clickbait. Are we allowed to walk anywhere in the camp? I guess. Just don't walk into the fences or you'll be shocked. They're electrifying. I smirk. I'm going to put this out there to be transparent. I can't have a friendship based solely on puns. What about witty barbs? Add the occasional bon mot, and I'm in. I want to laugh a little, but I don't have a laugh to give. Light, easy laughter feels lost, like a phantom emotion. Still, I'm grateful for even the passing sensation. 2 guards on patrol pass by, turning their heads toward us. Without thinking about it, we both walk in the opposite direction. Do you know there's a camera in the Mercury homes? I don't whisper, not exactly, but seeing the guards everywhere makes me feel on edge, so I speak softly. I mean, how are we supposed to shower? The cameras are only in the common area, not in the bathrooms or bedrooms. And supposedly they don't record sound. But we probably should assume they actually do. Safer that way. So I guess you really didn't check out the regs, did you? No. I was busy exploring our internment lodgings and unpacking. Unpacking? You mean the 10 articles of clothing we were allowed to bring? I brought 12. I'm an amazing packer. Rebel? You should totally have your own reality show. Packing for uncertainty. It's a joke. It feels both natural and totally inappropriate to joke. Like this whole conversation, really. Every syllable is awkward, and every reaction feels wrong. It doesn't seem like there's any right way to simply be in here. Like we're on a journey with no map, no compass, and no destination. Let's go over there. I think I saw a little garden. Aisha directs me down a wide main road that divides the camp into halves. On the map we all received, it's called the Midway. A garden? I think it's more like a small outcropping of rocks and shrubs. We walk down the Midway. I'd call it a road, but there are no cars in the camp. At least none that we're allowed to drive. There's a small parking lot to the left of the main entrance, but like everything else, our cars are back home. It's not until I walk down the Midway, toward what is essentially the back of the camp, the side that faces the mountains, not the road outside the camp, that I realize how large Mobius is. Yet its size is dwarfed by the vastness of the desert around us. There's noise, but not city noise. No planes overhead that I've seen yet. No sirens. And besides the little kids trying to occupy themselves, there's a lot of eerie silence. Many pairs of eyes that dart about and then are quickly cast downward when guards pass. Tear-stained faces. Dusty hems and cuffs. People walking around aimlessly, like Aisha and I are. Searching, looking, wondering if there's a way out. But all we see are guards and guns, and a fence whose sole purpose is to keep us locked in here. That or kill us. The back of the camp appears less heavily watched. There are still armed guards walking around and watchtowers, but it's a little quieter. And there are evenly spaced orange plastic crowd control barriers. You know, the kind you sometimes see along parade routes or at outdoor concerts, between the fence and us. Ostensibly, they're to prevent us from walking right up to the fence and getting electrocuted. But there's space between them to slip by, and they're only hip-high. And what about the little kids? I suppose no parent will let their child out of their sight in this place. I pray that none slip away from their parents or think this is a good spot for hide and seek. Hopefully, the danger electric fence signs that show a lightning bolt zapping through a body and that are posted every 10 feet will keep both kids and adults away. The government, the exclusion authority, built all of this whole camp under the cover of darkness. I wonder what else they've built. What else can they do to us when America isn't looking? We are nearly at the end of camp. Nothing but the fence, and beyond that, the desert. Off to the side is the garden. A bit of an overblown name for it, since it's mostly large, uneven rocks surrounded by pale green shrubs the color of eucalyptus. Here and there are dry stalks of yellow flowers that look almost like mustard plants. If this corner were all you could see of the camp, it would be beautiful. Yellow petals, brown dirt, blue sky. If we weren't prisoners, this place would feel peaceful. If history had no ghosts, I wouldn't be terrified of what might come next. If. But ifs are always loaded, aren't they? Aisha bends low and plucks a small purple flower that's growing from underneath a rough-surfaced, arrowhead-shaped rock. She takes a seat and twirls the blossom between her thumb and index finger. I wander over to another boulder and kneel in front of it, brushing some loose dirt from its face. What are you doing? I think there's something carved into the stone. Maybe a petroglyph? I break off a twig and scrape at the dust in the outlines. I use my fingernail to flake off some dirt. I'm parched, and it dawns on me that I shouldn't stray far from the trailer without water. I give the outline a final brush with my palm and sit back on the hard ground. Damn it. That doesn't look prehistoric. Aisha kneels down next to me and reads over my shoulder. SA plus TJ. I mean, maybe they were like really advanced prehistoric peoples. Or maybe aliens? Aliens who etch little hearts into stone in the middle of the California desert. Of course, Occam's razor. Go with the hypothesis with the fewest assumptions needed. Vandalizing aliens it is. I look at Aisha, who cracks a smile, and then lets out a laugh. Then we both start laughing. It's not even really funny, but my sides hurt and tears roll down my face. Aisha leans back against a rock and belly laughs, then covers her face with her hands and begins sobbing. Her shoulders shake. Neither of us laughs anymore. I don't know exactly what to do. I put my hand on her knee. Hey, it's going to be okay. We'll figure a way out of here. She sniffles and wipes her nose with the back of her hand. A way out? How? The only way out is through an electric fence. I know, I whisper. Don't give up hope. Not yet. It's too soon. Don't worry, Aisha sniffs. I know being scared is a superpower. What? It's something my dad told me once when I was in the district spelling bee. He said that my fear made me more alert, that I could channel my fear into focus. Did you win? Nah, second place. But you know, I was up against another Desi. He won state. Aisha grins a little. Desis kill at the spelling bee. And my dad was right. When I'm scared, I always feel like I can fight a little harder. I nod at Aisha and smile. I stand and reach out a hand to help her up. As we're dusting off our clothes, I notice a small depression past the orange barriers at the fence line. I squint. It looks like something is burrowed underneath. A small animal, maybe? Or... We hear a shout. Then more shouting. We step away from the garden and see a young man yelling at a guard. His friends are holding him back. We move closer to hear. 2 other guards rush over. "You Islamophobic asshole!" the young man yells. "We were in middle school together. What the fuck is wrong with you?" He's our age, maybe a little older, tall and wiry. 2 friends pull at his arms. One is speaking to him, too low for us to hear. "Back off, Sohail," the guard barks. "I could have you taken away. Trust me, you don't want that." He motions to the other guards to keep their guns away, moving his palms down like he's pressing the air. My chest tightens. The guards could do anything to Sohail in here. And who could we turn to? There's no police for us to call. No one to protect us. We should do something. They could hurt him. I start walking closer, but Aisha grabs my arm and pulls me back, shaking her head. "Don't be stupid," she says. "They have guns." I want to bark at her, but I look into her wide, terrified eyes and take a breath. She's right. I glance down at my hands. They're trembling. I curl the right one into a fist and pound it against my thigh. I grit my teeth and nod at her. Sohail puts his hands up, shaking his friends off him and retreating a few steps. I can only glimpse part of the guard's face, but I see his shoulders relax. "It's going to be fine, Sohail. Chill. Everyone is doing their jobs here. You need to do yours." "What the hell is my job?" Sohail asks, and then spits on the ground in front of his feet. "To do what you're told," the guard says, then joins the other guards to help them disperse the small crowd that is gathered. Sohail shakes his head and walks away. Toward the garden. Toward us. Every moment in the short time we've been behind this fence has been a revelation. And in this moment, I realize that Sohail was lucky that guard did nothing but brush him off. "Are you okay?" Aisha asks as Sohail nears. He looks up, startled. Clearly he hadn't noticed us. Sohail lets out a noise somewhere between a harumph and a loud exhale. He looks over his shoulder. Neither the guards nor the small crowd are there anymore. No one wants to linger. "I'm fine." He pauses. "Actually, no. I'm not fine. Not at all. This is some next-level fascist bullshit." Aisha and I simply nod. I kick a small stone, and we all watch it skitter away. We stare like it's the most riveting thing in the world, which, in the absence of our phones, it basically is. Then we all look at one another. "I'm Sohail," he says, breaking the silence. "Sohail Saeed," he adds rather formally. "We've heard," I say. "I'm Layla." "Aisha." Aisha grins at him. He smiles back, and it seems to release the tension he was holding in his shoulders.
My teta would know the perfect ancient Egyptian curse to put on these assholes.
Like the curse of King Tut? Aisha asks. Sohail chuckles a little.
He wasn't the only pharaoh, you know. My grandmother, didn't really believe in curses, but I loved hearing about them and about all the coincidental deaths that surrounded excavations. Teta was an archaeologist and a storyteller, and believe me, ancient curses and mummies made the best ghost stories.
Share, I urge. One of the curses, at least. Sohail runs his hand through his wavy dark hair. His light brown eyes look off into the distance, then snap back to us.
The curse inscribed on a statue of a high priest of Amun says any transgressor will die from hunger and thirst.
It's a little on the nose for a desert, don't you think? Aisha says. He gives her a little side-eye grin.
How about, he shall be cooked together with the condemned?
Succinct, I say. I think I like that one. May our enemies be cooked with the condemned.
Yeah, well, we're the ones most likely to die from hunger and thirst, not the guards or any of those fascist bureaucrats in the hub. And definitely not the president,
Sohail says. You think they're going to starve us? Aisha asks.
This is a prison camp. Have you seen pictures of the concentration camps in World War II?
Sohail asks. I see Aisha take a step back, like she's been hit in the chest. Then it occurs to me that she hasn't imagined anything worse than this. Probably a lot of people haven't. Everyone is scared in a deep way, like in our bones, and maybe thinking of what more they might do to us is too much to bear. This isn't a concentration camp, I say. Part of me feels like I need to shield Aisha, because she's not ready to consider the nightmare scenarios. And it's not going to help anyone if you talk like that. It's too scary.
Good. I want to scare people. We should be scared. Then maybe people will rise up and do something.
I get it. Some fear is good, but not if it makes you draw so much into yourself that you're petrified. That's not good for anyone. Take a look around. Don't be stupid. Sohail's jaw tightens. He looks like he's about to say something, but stops himself. Then he glances at Aisha and his face softens.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to freak you out.
It's okay. We're all on edge. Where's your block? I ask, trying to ease the tension. Sohail points across the midway.
I'm on block 6, with a hodgepodge of other Arab Americans.
It's only when Sohail phrases it that way I realize we've been segregated by ethnic group. Aisha realizes it too. Damn! Our whole block is Desi, Aisha says, then looks at me. I don't suppose it's a coincidence that they separated us? Sohail rubs the back of his neck and grimaces.
I don't think the authority leaves anything to coincidence.
Divide and conquer, I say. But I don't think either Sohail or Aisha hears me. They're looking at each other with awkward half-smiles. Oh my God, Aisha says, glancing at her watch. We're going to be late for the orientation. My mom is gonna freak.
I'll catch up with you guys later, after we've been properly oriented, or whatever the hell they want to tell us about this fucking place,
Sohail says. Aisha and I turn and walk toward our block as Sohail heads to his. With each step, another muscle in my body tenses. Aisha clutches her stomach. I see others walking back to their trailers. many already making their way to the hub in small family groups. And it's so quiet. Too quiet. We're all different people, but each of us, to a person, has the same look. Abject fear. As we near our trailers, I turn to look back toward the mountains, the stunning granite peaks off in the distance. They're beautiful and stark against the sky, and I imagine how stunning the moonrise will be if we can see it this evening. A silver crescent hanging above the summit. But then I look again, and I see only fences and razor wire and guns. I shiver as a desert chill sweeps through me. Chapter 7.
Where were you?
My dad asks the moment I step back in the trailer.
The orientation is in 15 minutes. Hurry, we can't be late.
I'm sorry. I ran into Aisha, the girl I met at the train station. We were walking around and didn't realize how big this place is, and we got a little lost. And you're covered in dirt. My mom looks at me wide-eyed. What were you doing? Nothing. It's the dust. I'll go clean up. I hurry to my room. I guess I'm calling it my room now. Funny how our minds cling to normalcy, desperately searching for the familiar in an environment that's totally foreign. No, that's wrong. It's not like being in another country where you feel a weird sort of thrill when you find a piece of home, a person from your city, say, or even a vintage Coke sign. This place isn't foreign. It's forced. It's poison being shoved down our throats. I quickly wash my face and scrub the dirt from my hands. I change into a gray Wilco t-shirt I got when David and I saw them in concert last summer. It seems like a million years ago now, and David a million miles away. I can't get all the dust out of my hair, so I opt for a ponytail and a green Wimbledon baseball cap. I think of the tennis team. A few of us agreed to help the coach run a clinic during the upcoming summer for the new varsity potentials to prep for the fall season. There will be drills and running lines and scrimmage matches and laughter and gossip. But not for me. My racket and tennis skirts are in my closet, awaiting cobwebs. Seems impossible that the entire world could lose all sense and decency in an instant. And yet here we are. We walk toward the hub with hundreds of other families. An alarm blaring over the speakers silences everyone and signals the meeting. Again, I'm struck by the Americanness of the throngs of people. Every race, dozens of ethnicities, different ways of dressing, and certainly widely varying opinions about politics and life and Islam. But I guess that's the old America. Now we all have one thing in common: a religion that makes us enemies of the state. The state all of us are citizens of, the one most of us were born into. As we approach the hub, I'm gutted by another realization. The armed guards, the ones looking down on us, they're all American too. I scan the midway for the face of the guard with the compass tattoo, the one who seemed... I stop that thought. It doesn't matter what I see in his face or in his eyes. To him, I'm the enemy, and to me, he is my jailer. We walk into the vast hub auditorium. Unity, security, prosperity. The words fill a giant screen at the back of the stage. Even with the hundreds of people filing in, the space feels cavernous. I shudder when I think of the many internees who might be forced to join us here or be taken to the other camps, as yet unnamed and unpopulated. Muslims make up only about 1% of the total U.S. population, but that's still almost 3.5 million people. How can they imprison all of us? That would be like arresting 90% of Los Angeles. Besides the logistics, the very thought of it should be impossible to imagine here in America. A large man wearing a black suit walks to the center of the stage. It's the same blotchy-faced man who watched the guards take down that kid. The loud echo of his footfalls quiets the buzz of voices in the hall. His face still looks like his tie cuts off the circulation to his head. He's flanked by what seems to be his own security detail. They don't wear military uniforms, but suits, like the Secret Service, and with their fashy haircuts and vicious grins, they'd fit right in at a Unite the Right rally. The man stares at us as we enter, his eyes like daggers and his blubbery purple lips drawn into a plastic smile. If he were to add a polo shirt with a whistle around his neck, he'd look suspiciously like Mr. Connors, the thick-necked football coach at my high school. His voice thunders through the crowd.
Welcome to Mobius. I'm the director of our camp, which takes its name from the Mobius Arch Loop Trail nearby.
Welcome? I whisper in my mom's ear. He makes it seem like we had a choice to come here. My mom squeezes my hand and gives me her be quiet look, lips in shushing gesture, eyebrows drawn together.
Now, we want to make life here as peaceful and enjoyable as possible. Take a little time to familiarize yourself with the camp and its layout. It's a big place, and there are a lot of opportunities here. There are recreation areas for the children as well as for adults. We're planning a vegetable garden. There's the warehouse where you can collect your rations, and of course, the mess, where we'll take our dinners together as a community.
I stare at the director, almost in awe of how he is able to twist the idea of imprisonment to make it seem like sleepaway camp. Community, opportunity, recreation, garden. He speaks like he's the entertainment director on a cruise ship, not the warden of a prison camp. Looking around, I see people staring ahead, wide eyes brimming with fear, with tears, seething with anger. Some of them hush their babies, gently bouncing them so they don't cry out, trying to give them some comfort. Watching this simple act of love destroys me. A prison camp isn't a place for children. It isn't a place for anyone. I lock eyes with a toddler, a little girl who can't be more than 2 or 3. Her green eyes are bright, but dark circles under them betray her lack of sleep. Like the rest of us, she's tired. She stares at me, and in that heart-shaped face, I see something familiar. Something I've seen before. I rack my brain. Refugees. Syrian refugees. That's who she reminds me of. A photo of a little girl, probably her age, staring through a chain-link fence into a photographer's lens. But that girl, the photographer caught her in the moment when the light in her eyes was extinguished, stamped out not merely by fear, but by being forgotten, by the complacency of the world around her. I first saw that picture in the daily digital news feed our history teacher made us subscribe to, and I think it might be the loneliest picture I've ever seen. This little girl, the one with the heart-shaped face. God, I don't want that light taken from her. But I also see a few people nodding mechanically, probably thinking we should go along, maybe believing that we'll get them out of here sooner. I can't figure out if they're utterly clueless or genuinely hopeful that justice will prevail.
You'll notice we've divided the blocks by your ethnic and cultural backgrounds. The authority believes you'll be more comfortable among your own people.
My people are Americans. All of them. The director continues in his upbeat vocal swagger.
To help ease your transition, each block has its own minders, and the minders speak your language, for the most part, so they can understand everything.
The director pauses and then repeats himself.
Everything.
What an asshole. Each of his words bulges with threats. We're watching you. We're listening. We're everywhere. He continues.
They're available night or day to assist you.
He points to a row of a couple dozen people seated behind him. They are us. Some in hijab, some in topis, some in jeans and t-shirts. Every race and ethnicity represented at the camp.
Who needs your government to bring you down when your own people will do it for them?
The director motions for the minders to rise.
These fine people share your background, understand your concerns. They come from your community, and they have kindly volunteered their time to help ease your transition into life at Mobius.
Traitors! Fascists! A woman with her light brown hair pulled back into a tight ponytail stands up in the middle of the auditorium and shouts at the minders on stage. A wave of murmurs pulses through the crowd, and some people at the back join her spontaneous protest. Traitors! The director's face reddens, but he keeps his voice calm. He motions to the guards to remove the woman who began the chants.
We won't have disruptions at Mobius. We are the first camp, and we will set the standard. And there will be consequences for anyone straying from the regulations.
As he speaks, 2 exclusion guards yank the woman from her seat and drag her to the aisle. The first guard pulls out handcuffs. The woman spits in the face of the second guard, who responds with a slap so hard that she falls to the floor. I feel sick to my stomach watching. The second guard moves to pull her up, but she flails at him and kicks him in the shin with the heel of her shoe. Then he tases her. A buzz fills the air, along with a piercing scream. He tases her again. The guards grab her arms, hoist her up, and drag her limp body out of the auditorium. All eyes in the room watch the door as it slams shut. A silence descends. People are either too scared or too stunned to speak. No one seems sure where to look. At the floor, at one another. Some people cover their faces and mouths with their hands. I shake my head at my parents, tears stinging my eyes. I have no words. What use are my words in the face of this? My mom pulls me closer and grasps my hand tighter. Eventually, our heads return to the stage, and the director, who has been standing there unfazed, watching the scene unfold, not saying a word. It's a terrifying kind of quiet. The kind in a horror movie that tells you something unspeakable is about to happen, and you're helpless to stop it. The director clears his throat.
Remember our motto.
He points to the screen behind him.
Unity, security, prosperity. Now, dinner. Minders, call out your block number and walk them to the mess.
When the minders call their blocks and march the short distance from the hub to the mess, hundreds of us follow in stunned silence. I think we're all shaken, not only at the cruelty of what we witnessed, but at the everydayness of it. How the director didn't flinch. How the guards delivered those volts with such ease. I wonder where the woman was taken. If that display was merely the tip of the iceberg. A drone hums overhead, recording our silent procession. The mess is a giant, characterless cafeteria, like you'd find in a public high school or a prison. Long tables with blue plastic chairs lining the sides. My Converse squeak against the gray and white checkerboard vinyl floor as I follow the masses inside. I guess it's vinyl? Some kind of epoxy coating, maybe? It actually feels a little squishy, soft underfoot. It's a large hall with a kitchen and a food line at one end, and stone-colored walls with colorful posters about hand-washing and hygiene. Like I said, school or prison. There's a whiff of the bleach that is in our Mercury home, but mixed with fried oil and what I used to call eau de cafeteria when I still ate lunch at school. The mess is also divided by blocks. Small cardboard table tents are labeled with block numbers so we know where to go. The din rises as people find their tables and their voices, though I can't imagine anyone is actually saying what is on their mind. My parents and I sort of hang out by our block tables, not sure what to do next. Then our minders pass by, introducing themselves. I'm Salim, and this is my wife, Fozia. Glad to meet you. They're young. I bet they're only in their 20s, and they don't seem to have any kids. I saw them on our block earlier. They're Desi Americans, like us. But you know, more backstabbing and collaborating. I wonder how they came to this, what the impetus would be to turn against your own. I look around as people take seats in our segregated sections. South Asian, African American, Arab, Southeast Asian. East Asian and Latinx too, though they seem to be fewer in number. Sohail was right. Everything is deliberate. Divide and conquer. We may all be Muslims, but we still have our prejudices and racism. It's simpler to play on our internalized isms if you separate us and feed our fears. Easier to make us other ourselves and do the director's work for him. Today, we're all Muslims who have been forced here, but maybe it wouldn't be hard to tap into our bigotry to turn us against one another. To turn our gaze away from where our anger should really be directed. Classic colonial conquest strategy. Just ask the British. Aisha approaches us. She's holding hands with a younger boy and walking next to a middle-aged man and woman. I assume they're her family. Auntie, Uncle. Aisha addresses my parents with the automatic honorific accorded all Desis of parental age. Some of us may have lost our mother tongue, as my Nani used to call it, but the custom of tamiz, respect for elders, stays strong, despite decades of assimilation. These are my parents, Asfia and Zaki, and my little brother, Zubair, Aisha says. Our parents shake hands. Assalamu alaikum. Nice to meet you, my dad says. He pauses, then speaks again. So much dust in this place. Yes, we can't even open the windows in our, Mercury home, my mom says. Aisha's mom jumps in. I don't know how we'll keep the clothes clean at all. I look at Aisha, and she shakes her head a little. I guess dust is going to be like the weather, the thing you talk about when you can't think of anything else to say. We're allowed to get our food only when our block number is called. When it's our turn, Aisha and I head toward the line, and our parents follow. We file past the cafeteria workers to collect our plates of rice and some unrecognizable vegetable stew. There are milk boxes, fruit cups, and Jell-O. I feel nauseous, she says, looking at the food. I don't know if I can eat. Same, I say. It's like junior high lunch all over again. Aisha grimaces as we walk back to our table. Down to the hairnets and surly looks from the cafeteria workers. I scowl as I take my first bite. And apparently the only seasoning is salt. Is this supposed to be some kind of desi dish? Serving this in a Pakistani home would be sufficient reason to be disowned. Aisha scoots closer to me and whispers, "The director. Holy shit." My upper body stiffens. I look around, worried that someone will hear her. But the clatter of lunch trays and cutlery is loud enough, so I let go of the tension in my shoulders. I know. That was terrifying. It's like he's not even a real person. But the thing is, he is a person, which I guess makes it even more frightening. The scariest monsters are the ones who seem the most like you. "Where do you think they'll take that woman?" Aisha asks, lowering her voice to the barest whisper, even though I don't think anyone else can hear her. Part of me doesn't want to think about it. Jail, maybe? I mean, besides this open-air prison we're all in, I guess there's probably some kind of holding area here. I don't know. I kind of don't want to know what's happening to her, I admit. I hope they don't hurt her. I mean, more than they already have. I know I'm being naive, but I want to hold on to some hope for the woman, for all of us, even if it's a false one. It's not like we have civil liberties in here, or lawyers. Aisha puts her hand over her mouth as this dawns on her. It's like Guantanamo, except in California. I'm scared of what will happen if we get stuck here. There's got to be something we can do. My voice trails off. Aisha's eyes grow wide. She opens her mouth, then snaps it shut without a word. Maybe I've said too much. We're quiet for a while. I don't think either of us can stomach any more discussion about the consequences the woman from the auditorium might be facing. I push aside my plate of internment slop and tear open the fruit cup. "So, which is your favorite?" Aisha breaks the silence. "Favorite what?" "Star Wars film. Remember our conversation from earlier? At the train station? About Lando being the best?" Shit. That really was just earlier today, wasn't it? Aisha nods and looks down, then shovels a little bit of rice onto her fork and raises it to her mouth. She puts it back down and sighs. My stomach twists a little. I know what Aisha wants. A second of normalcy. I can give her that. I take a deep breath. Well, I haven't seen anything before The Force Awakens, and I only went to that because my parents made me. You haven't seen the prequels or the original trilogy? The pod race? Young Luke? This is a travesty. We have to fix that. I grin. My mom had this girlhood crush on Luke Skywalker, I say. And it's true. She talks about waiting in line to see Star Wars when she was a kid, and I swear to God, there's this reverence in her voice, like it was a religious experience. She joined Twitter to follow Mark Hamill. Aisha laughs. I totally like your mom, but hello, Riz Ahmed is in Rogue One, a Daisy in Star Wars. I still haven't recovered. I laugh a little. It's nice to chuckle, to feel a moment of lightness. But I immediately silence myself because it also feels wrong. The moments of almost normalcy hurt. Salim, our minder, stands. He's got a neatly trimmed brown beard, which I think he hopes makes him look older, but it doesn't hide his baby face. Fozia stands up next to him and smiles at us. They're almost the same height and build, maybe 5'6", both kind of skinny with shoulders like swimmers. Her smile feels almost genuine. Not Salim's, though. Apparently, he's not a good enough actor to make his slight smile look anything but forced. Lock 2. We will walk back to our Mercury homes together. Remember, we operate as a team. Salim tries to make eye contact with as many people as possible while he speaks. He's so rigid and rehearsed. He sounds like a talking manual. There are lots of things to learn about, and I'm sure everyone would like to settle in, Fawzia adds. A 10 p.m. curfew is strictly enforced. We want our block to be perfect. The director has promised extra privileges for the blocks that meet standards without any violations. Remember, if you have any questions, our door is always open. She pauses, then adds with a hesitant smile. There are cameras and drones we'll be monitoring. You'll be safe. Unity, security, prosperity. Khudafis. Fawzia leaves us with the Urdu greeting, go with God. But I notice that Salim grabs her hand and squeezes. She bites her lip and clears her throat. I mean, have a good night. Everyone in Block 2 begins to stand. A few hours, a creepy camp motto, one violent display of authority, and we do what we're told. I do not like being told, especially when what I'm being told is so clearly wrong. Aisha and I say goodnight. Her parents are in a hurry to get back to the block, so they speed walk ahead. I don't blame them. The trailers might have cameras in them, but outside in the open, it feels much more like we're animals in a pen, waiting to be slaughtered. It's completely dark. The searchlights from the watchtowers sweep the grounds with swaths of light, while guards patrol on foot, guns and tasers at the ready. Their blank faces hide any feelings or fleeting doubts. As we turn the corner to Block 2, I stumble. The dirty blonde-haired guard with the tattoo is posted between Blocks 1 and 2. And like all the others, he has a taser and a gun. He turns and sees me looking at him. He tilts his chin and catches my eye, then spins his head back into its rigid, proper place. Chapter 8. My body is wrecked, but I can't sleep. Every time my eyes close, I see that suit in my house drawing a gun. Stop. Breathe. Sleep. Now I see the boy, the screaming mother. Stop. Breathe. Sleep. The woman getting tased, over and over again in my mind. I drag myself out of the lower bunk and splash cool water on my face. We can't stay here. We can't be here. But how the hell do we get out? There has to be a way out. No wall is impenetrable. I slip into my clothes and dusty sneakers and tiptoe out of my room. My parents' door is shut. I walk on cat feet through the tiny kitchen and living area, grabbing a keycard off the table. I slink out of our trailer, making sure the lock clicks as quietly as possible. My parents will go ballistic if they catch me sneaking out after curfew. There's a chill in the air, so I pull my hoodie up over my head. The same hoodie I wore when I snuck out to see David. I've been trying so hard not to let my mind rest on him. How I wish I'd been able to call him, see him before I was taken away. How heart-shattering it is not to have said goodbye. I have to push him out of my mind, at least for now. If I actually allow myself to think about, to feel how desperately I miss him, I won't be able to get out of bed. There are fewer guards posted. The two closest ones are up a block, chatting. One smokes, the orange embers of his cigarette wafting to the dusty ground. Searchlights sweep the camp. I stay close to the trailers, hoping to hide in the shadows. I count the time between sweeps of the beams of light from the guard towers and sneak from trailer to trailer, trying to avoid detection and the consequences that come from breaking curfew. I flatten myself against the aluminum siding of a Mercury home when a searchlight passes. Too close. My heart thuds in my ears. My breathing quickens. I pause because I'm suddenly and stupidly aware that I don't exactly know where I'm going, and that I'm utterly alone out here in the dark. We're so far from anywhere that Mobius might as well be the moon. But I see the garden in the distance, and I remember that hole, or whatever it was, I saw at the fence before Sohail got in that scuffle with the guard. If an animal dug its way in, I wonder if maybe there's a way out. The wind is still, and for that I'm thankful. I could do without another lungful of dust. The calm in the camp is eerie. In the distance, a high-pitched bark echoes in the foothills. It feels like the sound of loneliness. Goosebumps rise on my skin. There are no dogs at Mobius. Pets are forbidden. So maybe it's a coyote or a wolf or a fox. Honestly, I'm pretty sure I don't know the differences among any of those animals. What I do know is that for this one little moment, I'm glad an electrified fence exists between me and those sounds. The mobile units are pretty close together, but a wide open space stands between the last trailer and the garden. I hold my breath and wait for the searchlight to pass, then run across to the garden. I crouch down in the dirt against one of the big boulders as the light sweeps by again, but the edges of the bright beam fall short of me. I breathe. I inch my way up to the boulder Aisha and I came to earlier. That's where I was when I spied that burrow, that hole by the fence. I run my hand against the surface of the rock, feeling for the grooves of the initials we found before. When I find them, I rub my hand over the letters. They have a story. In some other time, two people came here willingly. They were probably young and in love. Who knows where they are now? Whether their love survived. So I'm pretending they are together somewhere, happy. It's make-believe, but it gives me a little hope. It reminds me that once there was a normal. I flatten myself against the ground and creep forward so I'm facing the mountains, peering through openings between the orange plastic barriers. I squint into the darkness, searching for that hole. But it's impossible to see. I don't have a phone to illuminate my way. There is only the brilliance of the wandering searchlights, and I don't plan on getting caught in their beams. Still, I scan for that hole or, I don't know, some other way to get through the fence. An electrified fence. Maybe it's not really electrified. Maybe it's only a threat, a scare tactic. Maybe that's how an animal got through. That imaginary animal through that hole I can't see. And even if it wasn't totally stupid and risky, how could I possibly dig my way through? I look up at the razor wire. Even if the fence isn't electrified, even if I could scale it, how would I get over the top without being slashed to ribbons? And how would I even test it to find out if it is electrified? What the hell am I even thinking? I take a deep, shuddering breath and cry. I lay my cheek against the ground, and my tears mingle with the dirt. I feel jagged streaks of mud caking onto my face. I clench my hands into fists. Crying only makes me angry with myself. There's no use for tears here. But my rage, that I'll hold on to. I hear the crunch of a footstep, and then a small spray of pebbles hitting a rock. I gasp, then immediately cover my mouth with my hands. A low male voice speaks from the other side of the rock.
You shouldn't be here.
My heart races. I turn and push myself off the ground. My knees wobble, but I stand. My eyes dart around, then land on the face of the guard from the train. Compass tattoo. There's nowhere to run. I take a deep breath, then another. Think. Don't be stupid. Smile. The guard's eyes soften, but his jaw is tight.
What are you doing out here?
I, lost my necklace earlier, but I found it. I finger the silver infinity charm at my neck, my last link to David. It was a gift from my boyfriend. I choke out the words. Don't cry. Not now. Not in front of him.
You're breaking curfew. You realize that? You understand the consequences of breaking the rules here?
Are you going to report me? My voice falters. I clear my throat. To the director? The guard takes a step closer to me. He blinks. I'm suddenly aware of the muddy trail of tears on my face. I brush away the dirt with the back of my hand. In the dark, it's hard to read his face clearly, but he seems to grimace like he's been hurt. Then he clenches his jaw. He takes me by the elbow, and I swear his fingers shake a little. He looks past me toward the mountains, then around us. We're alone. Please, I whisper. I'm sorry. He rubs his forehead with his free hand.
We need to get you back. Now.
He hurries me through the camp, dodging the searchlights, weaving in and out of the trailer homes to avoid unwanted attention. The entire camp is asleep. I look up at the sky and see stars. Everywhere. I keep having the same sensation over and over. If this place weren't a prison, it would be beautiful. But as it is, I feel like the sky will light on fire any second now, and all the stars will crash into one another and burn away to ash. I slow down as we approach my Mercury home. I probably shouldn't ask, but my curiosity too often gets the better of me. Why aren't you turning me in?
Because I'm not.
He cuts himself off. Not an exclusion guard at an internment camp? He stops and looks me in the eyes.
Things aren't always as they seem, Layla.
He knows my name. I don't think it's good to be known in this place. We walk the last few steps in silence. But if he knows my name, it's only right that I know his. What's your name? I ask as we stop in front of my door. He narrows his eyes at me, like he's trying to read something, but the print is too small. He bends down and whispers,
I'm Corporal Reynolds. Don't do this again. There are snakes, and men who will shoot you.
Chapter 9. When I was walking out to the mess the other night, I overheard two girls, probably from 7th or 8th grade, from Block 3, another Dacey block. One of them was talking about making a small curtain for the tiny window in her bedroom out of an extra pillowcase she'd decorated with markers. She seemed really happy to have something pretty to look at, so her room felt more homey, she said. My gut twisted when she said those words, that she was happy with something so small, so simple. People need to do what they can to manage the day-to-day in this place. But making Mobius feel like home is the last thing I want. To me, it would feel like giving up. Still, I followed the girls back to their block after dinner and gave them the washi tape I'd brought along for some reason, but hadn't bothered unpacking. Sometimes it's the small things that give us hope and make life bearable. I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor of my little nondescript, white-walled prison room. Aisha's on my bottom bunk. This room, this unit, it's claustrophobic. But Aisha shares hers with her brother, so the small space of my room gives her a sibling-free refuge. Privacy. A tiny bubble where the cameras and guards and drones aren't looking at us. I sigh. We have no idea how long we're going to be in here, do we? We elected this guy who sees all of us as a threat. He doesn't have to let us out. We're like netted fish, struggling to find water, but we don't realize we're drowning on dry land. We have to get out. Aisha whispers. What do you mean? How do you propose to get out? I don't know, but we have to figure out something. There have to be others who feel the same way. I know there are. There's not just fear in the camp. There's anger, too. Anger can't turn off the electricity to the fence. And unless you're planning on getting out in a body bag. Aisha brings her hand to her mouth, stopping the words, but I was thinking them anyway. No, I'm planning on getting out alive. Think about it. There's never been a wall that people haven't been able to get by. You mean like the border wall? Yeah, and the Berlin Wall. Did you learn about that in history? Some people made it over in a hot air balloon or by digging a tunnel under the wall. We don't have shovels, and we don't have a hot air balloon, Aisha says. I shrug and let out a little groan. Look, she continues, I'm not saying that I'm not with you. I'm saying be realistic. Be smart. You're talking about the possibility of getting killed. My parents aren't going to go along with some escape plan. Would yours? Aisha's pitch rises as she speaks. I shake my head. They're too scared. But others aren't. Sohail, us. I know we can't do something stupid, but I don't want to be buried and forgotten here. I stand up and start pacing the tiny room, twisting the ends of my hair around my finger. I take a deep breath and puff out my cheeks, exhaling. When I turn to walk back in the other direction, I see Aisha chewing on her bottom lip. She's worried. You're right, I say. I didn't mean to sound flippant. Sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me. It's the dust. It's the isolation. It's the fence. It's David. I want to talk to David, to hear his voice, or maybe... David? Aisha interrupts. And I realize I've been trying so hard not to think about him that I haven't told Aisha about him either. Saying his name out loud is a reminder of everything I've lost. My boyfriend. I guess he's still my boyfriend. I touch my infinity necklace. I don't know when I'll see him again. And who's he going to take to prom? Aisha's mouth drops open, and she tries to hold in a laugh. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to laugh. I love how prom is on the list right after freedom and breathing. Oh my God. That's totally ridiculous, right? There are these moments when I still think this place isn't real. Like it's a horrible dream. And for that minute, my mind feels free to think about, like, prom. I get it. We have to have those moments of remembering that we're human and thinking of regular stuff, or else the weight of this place would crush us. Like, have you seen Footloose? The movie? I ask. Yeah, it's like one of my mom's favorites from middle school. She made me watch it for mother-daughter bonding or something. Original only, not the remake. The entire premise is sort of ridiculous. Like, these kids stage a revolt because they're not allowed to dance in their town. Some preacher says it's against the Bible or something. Like Sharia law for Christians. I roll my eyes, since every Muslim understands the hypocrisy of right-wing xenophobes. They're all terrified of a word they don't understand, scared that religious law is going to infiltrate the land, but meanwhile they support the death penalty, are anti-choice, and think creationism should be taught in schools because of, wait for it, religion. Aisha smirks at me. Something like that. Anyway, they stage this dance outside the town limits to get around the law. I grin at Aisha, letting my mind float back to David, imagining prom with him, thinking of the last real smile we shared, and then our final, terrible, helpless moments together, where he was yelling at me to run. David, I say out loud. Aisha looks at me. David, he's on the outside. Maybe he could help us somehow. I mean, his dad used to work at the State Department. Though it's not like his dad has lifted a finger to help us so far. I doubt he's suddenly grown a conscience. I don't know. I might be grasping at straws, but that's all I've got right now. Can we even have visitors? You could try to put in a phone request to talk to David, but the director's people totally listen in. She pauses. Do your parents know you have a boyfriend? I nod, and Aisha rises, knocking her head on the edge of the bunk as she stands up. Damn it! Are you okay? I keep doing that too. Everything in this place is against us, even the stupid too-low bunk. Aisha rubs her head. I'm okay, but go on. I'm fascinated by this whole parental knowledge of boyfriend situation. I grin. I don't give them all the details, but yeah, they know. David comes over for dinner. He sometimes comes to the mosque with us. Last Ramadan, he even fasted a few days. Whoa! Is he going to convert? What? No. We've never even discussed it. His family is Jewish, and that's really important to him. I mean, half his dad's family was killed in the Holocaust, and his mom's family are Yemenite Jews who were refugees. Some of them just disappeared from camps. I pause for a moment, suck in my breath, listening to my words echo in my brain. History suddenly seems terrifyingly present. They've gone through so much to hold on to their family and their faith. David feels that very deeply, a kind of gratitude that his family survived, an obligation to never forget, and also to speak truth. Aisha looks at me with wide eyes. Wait, so David is brown and Jewish? I nod. Honestly, when we first met in grade school, I thought he was Desi. I think I just wanted to not be the only one, you know? A Desi Muslim girl from an immigrant family and a brown Jewish son of a refugee. You're like a dream team for Model UN. I grin. David knows his dad has white privilege, but he's seen his mom get hit with anti-Semitism and racism, so he kind of gets it, you know? We try to be open to learning about each other's faiths, ask questions, talk things out. Aisha nods. That's so great. And oh my God, for Shabbat dinners, his mom makes marak tamani, an amazing Yemeni stew, and this flaky fried bread called malawak that I love more than my mom's parathas. Don't tell her I said that. Aisha laughs. That would earn you a one-way ticket to a boarding school in India. I give her a tiny smile and then clear my throat, pretending I don't feel a lump welling in it. Anyway, can you imagine anyone wanting to convert now? Publicly? It would be too dangerous. A woman converted at our mosque a couple of months ago. She knew the risks, and honestly, her Arabic pronunciation puts mine to shame. What? Seriously? Is she in here too? Nah, I don't think so. It was after the census. Also, she's white, and I don't see any white converts in here. White-looking Arabs, yes. White Americans? No. Maybe they'll be brought in here soon, too. But you've looked around. You know. There's like a hierarchy for bigots, isn't there? Like their hatred of Muslims isn't equal. They dispense it in degrees. They hate some of us more. Like the darker your skin or the more foreign-sounding your name. And if you're black and wear hijab, you're getting the brunt of it. Honestly, I think some racists think Islam is a race or ethnicity and not a religion. Like we're all brown and from Muslimistan. A knock interrupts us. My mom's muffled voice comes through the door. Honey, we need to get Aisha home. We don't want her parents to worry. Just a sec, we'll be right out. Aisha grins. Your parents knock and don't immediately barge in? They're a dream. Maybe we can get them to talk to my parents. I take my parents for granted sometimes. I know plenty of kids, Muslim and not, who envy the trust my parents have in me. I've never really had to hide who I am in front of them. I know a couple of girls at the mosque who want to date openly and not sneak around, and others who are willing to be arranged. And there's a girl who is both hijabi and the homecoming queen. The thing is, my parents always told me never to judge another Muslim's religiosity. Each of us practices in our own way, and God alone judges. Let there be no compulsion in religion. Can't count the number of times my parents have quoted that ayat passage to me. Aisha and I exchange sad, knowing looks that don't need words. I open my door. My parents and I walk her the few steps back to her trailer. Aisha's mother sits on the steps to their Mercury home in anticipation. Who can blame her? The fever pitch of anxiety and fear is the everyday current mood at this place. We're all hyper alert, a constant rush of adrenaline coursing through our bodies. I wonder what the crash will be like when it comes. While my parents exchange salams with Aisha's mom, I give my friend a quick hug and whisper, I'm going to see if I can get to David. Maybe there is some way he can help us. I'm really not sure if David could do anything for us, even if I am able to reach him somehow. But I want to leave her with a little hope as we say goodbye and gaze on the melancholy, drawn faces of our parents. I swear, all the parents here have only two looks anymore. Terrified worry, and a mask with a fake smile trying to hide their terror so their kids don't notice. When we leave Aisha's trailer, there's still an hour before curfew, so I convince my parents to take a short walk with me. Every time I'm outside now, I'm always watching, looking for a way out, paying attention to the guards who seem a little bored. In the dark, the searchlights and watchtowers are a menacing reminder that we're locked away. And I know the drones hover somewhere above our heads. I can feel the hum in my bones. The three of us quietly find our way back to our Mercury home. Corporal Reynolds is stationed at the top of our block. He catches my eye, but then quickly turns away. Chapter 10. Honey, get up. Your dad and I are heading to the community planning meeting at the hub. Then we're going to prayers. A few people are gathering for namaz in a trailer in Block 8. Eat something. I roll over and try to rub the exhaustion from my eyes. I never seem to sleep deeply here. It's like I'm asleep, but always on the edge of waking up. On the edge, period. Okay, Mom. Got it. I stick my hand out from under the blanket and give my mom a thumbs-up sign, since she's popped her head inside the door. Once she leaves, I get out of bed and stare into the mirror above the sink. Dark circles have taken up residence under my eyes. My parents seem to be settling in. Everyone is. Meeting people, organizing a school, scheduling regular prayers, divvying up work. My mom's actually seeing chiropractic patients at the clinic that some of the doctors have set up in a partitioned section of the hub. Every day for the past couple of weeks, my parents have been dropping hints that I should make friends, find something useful to do, form a book club. But the so-called library here is pathetic. There are barely any books, and it seems like all the internment-approved titles are by long-dead white dudes. I don't want to settle in. I don't want to adjust to the constant surveillance and the threatening gaze of white guards with weapons and the permanent smile of death from the director's purple lips. I don't want anyone to get used to it. And I need to see David. For no reason, for all the reasons. I swing my legs over the side of the bottom bunk, making sure not to hit my head as I get up. It's a lesson I learned the hard way during the first few days here at Mobius. I brush my teeth and scrub my face, being careful not to use too much water. Everything is rationed. There is food and water for everyone, but no extra. The worst is the shower timer. I miss taking long showers and washing and conditioning my hair. We all get 5 minutes a day. There is no luxuriating. No luxury, period. You can't even cheat because the shower turns off automatically. Another valuable first week of internment lesson. Take a shower at night so you don't feel like you're sleeping in a sandstorm. The most important lesson I've learned, though? Don't count all the things that existed for you then that you don't have now. Don't make that list. It will drive you mad. There's a knock at the door. I let Aisha in. We've been hanging out, doing our best to escape the claustrophobia of living behind a guarded electric fence. Gabbing, taking circuitous walks around the camp, meeting other kids who have nothing to do. And plotting how the hell we can get out of this place. Trying to reach David and get him to help feels both childish and impossible. But there's no other solution we've come up with that doesn't involve death. Or at least the chance of it. We're starting to realize that maybe it's a risk we have to be willing to accept if we really want to get out of here and aren't just pretending at escape. I haven't shared this with Aisha yet, but I'm giving myself 2 more weeks to figure it out. I work best with a deadline. Is David swoon-worthy? Her question totally comes out of left field. I'm sure he thinks he is. I laugh. But I never tell him that since I don't want him to get a big head. And is there anyone you find swoon-worthy? Someone in this camp, perhaps? Someone you've been talking to in the dinner line? Someone named Sohail? Aisha grins. Maybe. He seems to go out of his way to talk to me, and I am definitely encouraging him to do so. He's cute. He's smart. He's funny. But what can flirting be in this place besides an exercise in futility? I mean, it's not like we're going to go out on a date and then to prom. I grab Aisha's hand and squeeze. I'm glad she has a little distraction. I take a long, deep breath, while David's smiling face fixes itself in my mind. I miss David. A lot. I know it's only been a couple of weeks since I last saw him, but it feels like I haven't seen him in years. It's this place. It messes with time. I know. And I swear, if I hear the director's word vomit of unity, security, prosperity again, I'm going to scream. People are so scared of getting tased and disappearing that they're all keeping quiet. My parents are at the meeting too, and my little brother is playing soccer with a bunch of kids from this block and a couple of others. Some of the minders are the coaches. It's fucked up. The disappearances started last week. At first I didn't notice, but there's been talk. The Whisper Network, Sohail called it. Someone goes missing, taken in the night or ordered to report to the hub for questioning for some reason, and that person never comes back. I guess the director, his private security detail, the guards, try to keep their actions quiet. Except when they don't. 3 days ago, I heard that 2 guards caught a man leaving the hub after curfew. Apparently, he'd snuck in and attempted to access a computer. They stopped him as he was trying to get back to his trailer undetected. and he slashed one of them in the arm with a knife he'd stolen from the mess. When his partner tried to find him, the guards said he was gone. Not taken to a hospital, not in the brig. Gone. That's all they told him. I saw that man, the partner of the one who'd gone missing. I was walking toward the hub, and there was a crowd watching him run from guard to guard, frantic, asking questions about his boyfriend, where he was, when he'd return. The guards ignored him for a couple of minutes. Then one of them lost his patience with the man. The guard butted the man in the shoulder with his rifle. The man fell to the ground. The guards handcuffed him and took him away, too. The thing is, he didn't even fight back. And the rest of us who saw it happen just stood there, doing nothing, saying nothing. And then we dispersed. 2 men vanished. That's why I have to figure out some way to get out of here, to escape. When people lose hope, that's when the authority knows they've broken you. Sohail's in, right? I ask. What? He'll help us? I don't know. I think so, but I haven't asked him directly. We mostly talk about, our favorite fandoms and the crappy food here. I saw him arguing with his parents when they were walking out of the mess last night. His mom tried to shut him down, but I heard him say he wasn't going to play dead when our rights were being trampled. Aisha whisper sings. You say you want a revolution. What's up with you and the golden oldies? It's like an affliction. It's my parents. They skipped the lullabies and started us with the Beatles, and then worked their way up to Nirvana, which is where their extensive knowledge of music comes to a screeching halt. I'm not paying full attention. I'm staring out my little window as an idea forms. Corporal Reynolds is talking to the guards posted at my block. This place inspires secrets. I have mine, but so do others. Follow me. I get up from the floor. Ooh, are we hitting the mall? Maybe a movie? The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Are we speaking in code now? I shake my head. I keep thinking about how I can get to David. We're allowed phone calls, right? I'm going to ask. But they're totally listening in on the calls. And you have to submit a requisition. Yep, I know. But I'm going to roll the dice on a hunch. I walk out of my room. Aisha follows. When we step out of my trailer, I turn to her and say, Go along with it, okay? And then go back to your trailer. Now look concerned, like you're trying to console me. I'm going to start crying. Aisha knits her eyebrows together. Well, that won't be hard, because I am concerned that you're about to do something stupid. I stop and turn to Aisha and take her hand. Listen, you don't have to go along with this. I know there are risks, but we've been talking for days. I'm tired of talking. Aisha nods. I wait for her to head toward her trailer, but she squeezes my hand and smiles. We turn back toward the guards, toward Corporal Reynolds. Fake crying isn't hard. It's stopping yourself from crying that is more challenging in this place. As we near the head of the block, I clear my throat loudly and wipe away my tears. Corporal Reynolds looks at me. So do the other guards. He takes a step toward us. I haven't spoken to him since he caught me outside after curfew. I wipe my clammy hands on my jeans. Aisha puts her arm around my back and squeezes. She also steadies me because my knees buckle a little.
Ladies.
Corporal Reynolds removes his mirrored lens sunglasses as he steps closer.
Is there a problem?
Here goes nothing. I need to make a phone call. Corporal Reynolds takes a deep breath.
There's a procedure for that.
It's just that it's her 1-year anniversary, and she wants to talk to her boyfriend. She hasn't gotten to talk to him since we've been in here. Aisha tilts her head toward me. Can't you help? Please? The tone in her voice is pitch perfect. Concern, pity, slight pleading for a rescue. He looks at us. Pauses. Pausing is good. It means he's thinking about it. My shoulders tense. I feel Aisha's arm tighten around my back. Corporal Reynolds nods.
Okay. Come with me.
Aisha and I exhale. I give her a little hug, and she whispers, Jazakallah. Tears spring to my eyes. Maybe because it's the first time it actually feels like I really need divine intervention in my life. May God reward us all. Corporal Reynolds and I walk toward the hub. The adrenaline surging through me makes my heart feel like it might explode out of my chest. I swallow and keep swallowing. I'm so parched. I try to focus outward. He keeps his eyes ahead as he strides forward. When he realizes I have to speed up to keep pace, he slows down. Even, regular steps. His broad shoulders round forward ever so slightly when he walks. He keeps